What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, episode 54. And now I tabbed off of the screen, so I forgot the title. Nova Open 2023, Battles, Breakdowns, and Best Moments. For anyone that isn't familiar, the Battle Mallet Podcast is the journey of 3 to 4 busy gamers making their way to the Nova Open convention, playing games that they love, and balancing life with those games. My name is Jerod Johnson, and tonight I am joined by Trace Hyde.
What's up?
And Jason Table Noob Murray.
He's real. He's really real.
You got to pull back from your mic when you yell into it like that, Jason.
Oh, sorry.
But he's a real boy. Yeah, so we are back. We are over a week out from traveling to Nova. And so this is going to be our recap episode. It's going to be probably a little long and windy. So strap in, buckle up, grab your popcorn, a little snacky snack and a drink, and join us along for the ride. I think we're going to just kind of go day by day. So we'll start with Wednesday, and then you guys know how days and weeks go. So we'll just kind of progress through the rest of the convention.
So wait, Thursday comes after Wednesday, right?
Yes, in most cases.
And
if you're here just for the Underworlds content, just skip to the end.
Yeah. We'll put timestamps in the show notes. So if you want to jump to the Grand Clash recap, you can do that.
Which happened on Sunday, right? That was
Sunday,
a Sunday.
correct. It was a Sunday.
Sunday.
Yep. So anyway, yeah. So
buttons. So you
buttons
sew
on
the
shirts.
buttons on shirts.
So the buttons on shirts, but it's difficult to do when you're driving. So speaking of driving, on Wednesday, we made our way to Washington, D.C. And things went pretty well for a long time.
For a time.
On the trip. Yeah, Trace, you very considerately packed us some snackies.
I did, yep.
Some Buffalo Wild Wings, garlic Parmesan popcorn, and some Chex Mix. And
makes your mouth go pop, pop.
Thanks to my wife for picking all that stuff up at Sam's for us. So that was a big shout out to her. But I did pack everybody's individual bags this year to try and just make things a little easier.
Yeah.
Put on my dad hat for a minute.
No, it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah.
And then we got to DC.
Well, no, there was the whole.
There was the thing before DC. The thing in Virginia.
There was an accident where the car was like
accident.
Straight up and down in a tree through another tree.
Yeah,
that was like an hour lost.
Pretty sure a policeman ran a dude off the road.
But pretty sure. We can neither confirm nor deny that. So
no,
we weren't
pure speculation on my part.
Yep. Yeah,
but then, the journey was a little longer than we anticipated it would be.
Yeah, but then we got into DC, and then the roads went where roads
went away.
Go.
The roads went away, and
so
there was just cars everywhere.
For anyone that hasn't driven in DC in rush hour, it's very exciting. I didn't drive, so I think Jason might have a heart attack if he tries to recount the experience. But they just open both sides of the road to like one flow of traffic.
Yeah, the biggest thing is it's not very well signed, right? Like I think we've all been to cities where two-way traffic gets turned to one way. And there's normally like lights and saying like, go this way. No, not there. Mm-hmm. It's just go.
Yeah.
It's just go. And my favorite part was Trace like, oh crap handling in the back.
Because I had to pee.
Oh yeah. It wasn't me this time.
Well, it just took me back to my New York days. It's like, I'm merging now. I don't care if you're in my way. I'm going. I'm just going.
It was the sudden jolts back and forth and me going, ooh, because I needed to pee.
Yeah. But you navigated it really well.
He did. Well.
Yeah. And Jason, the driving was great. Like, I think you channeled your inner Buffaloan. What are you?
Buffalonian.
Buffalonian? Is that what it is?
Sure.
I don't know. You should know. You're inner New Yorker. Just
my Western
aggressive
New York
driving. But you got us there. We got there safely.
And we got there.
Yeah.
We got there early, and I would say that. Oh well, maybe not early. We arrived a little bit before 5,
Yeah.
which is like right on par with us. Um, but what was a little weird was like setup was still happening.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they were unloading pallets. They were setting up tables. The vendors were setting up their wares.
Yeah,
There was
so
probably 50% of the vendor halls that weren't set up yet, which was odd for us.
which is fine. Like it's not a complaint. It was just odd because normally when
Yeah.
we walk in, everything's set, ready to go, and this time we got to kind of just see the layout. The hotel key thing was an issue.
Yes.
It didn't really bother us, but thank you to the Hilton staff for walking to my room about 500 times.
Yeah.
So the hotel key issue is that the key machine did not work, so they were not able to produce the keys. So hotel staff had to take the master fobs and escort people to their rooms to let them in. And if you were like us and you were going to your room constantly because you forgot something or you needed to drop something off or whatever, that meant that you had to get the hotel staff to walk you up to your room about 500 times.
The number of folks from sales and marketing that we got to meet were excellent, because that's where all those people came from.
Yeah. But I mean, they handled it well. Called in.
They did,
all hands on deck. And then once we got registered and settled and everything, we went and grabbed dinner at basically like an English style pub.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty good.
The solo show. The guy only one bartender against a bunch of folks who came in on a night that he probably was not anticipating. Trivia night. So we did fine. I mean, he got our food out pretty quick.
It out.
Yeah. No, he did great. And then
just to get the whole setting, because it is a new hotel, right? So this was the first time in DC proper. We passed the Lincoln Memorial, Washington Memorial, got to see some cool stuff as we were actually driving in. Now we always see it, but like we were up close and personal. And then like for the hotel itself, to go to get something to eat there was a lot of options on that road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, previously there was always stuff you could walk to, but it was limited, right? Like 3 or 4 restaurants. Like this, you could have had whatever you wanted.
Yeah. There were pizza places, Thai places, there was a deli, there was the pub, there was Mexican food.
Yeah, lots of options, which was nice. And within walking distance, and not as far of a walk as what we had to do previously to get to some of those things.
Oh, yeah, not nearly as far.
Yeah, so that was excellent. The location was nice. It was a little, getting in and out is a little more congested than we were used to. But I really did like the location.
The other thing too was access to the car. So, parking was not as easy because it was not valet, right? So there's a sense of convenience where I just give you my keys and you deal with it. But it was also nice to know that I could go to the parking garage anytime I wanted to get the car, to get something out of the car. It was stressful though, and you guys were not part of this because you were holding down the stuff while I did this. Because like every parking spot was labeled like handicapped, compact car, valet. I'm like, where the heck do I? Finally, I found one, and it was a special space. So
it was a special space.
It was a good one. You got a good parking spot.
I did, especially with our friend.
Yep,
it was blessed by the horned rat.
Yeah, it was.
So, but yeah, like in my opinion, it was a much better venue for that type of stuff.
Yeah, agreed. And then, I mean, while we're on the venue, I mean, I think we can probably just go ahead and talk about the venue now.
Yeah.
So the vendor hall at the old Nova was in the basement. And I say in the basement, it was on the bottom floor. It wasn't like in like some dank, weird basement. It was like huge high ceilings, kind of in that atrium area of the old, of the Regency at Crystal City. but it had these huge columns in the middle of it, that were the elevator shaft or the escalators or whatever. And so it was always kind of cumbersome to navigate around. Never really quite knew where you were in relation to other shops, but this one was a true vendor hall. It was one, wide hallway, long hallway, vendor set up on either side, so you could easily walk through. There was space for everybody. I never felt crowded in there. And there were a ton of vendors too. And I think vendors that had not been there before.
Yeah, there was a lot of vendors that were new.
Yeah, I don't think Baron of Dice has been there before.
Baron of Dice was new. Artis Opus was new. Monument Hobbies was new.
Yeah. And I think there was a local to Washington, D.C. game store.
There was two more. There was Griffin Games and the board game room. No.
The boardroom?
No. The boardroom was a board game shop that we passed on the
that's right.
trip.
Yep.
I forgot the name of this. There was another store, but they were running demos and stuff downstairs, and then they're more of a chain. There's multiples that are open in Virginia of that particular one, but I forgot the name of it.
Cool.
There was a lot.
They did a nice thing about putting registration in kind of that vendor area, right? So if you came and you had to, check in, you saw where all the vendors were. I thought that was a nice touch to draw the traffic to the vendor hall.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was good.
But yeah, there was I wouldn't say there was a ton of vendors, but there was a lot more than in years past.
Right.
Yeah. I think one is because the event's grown so much. And then the other is that the venue actually affords more space. So there's probably more vendor slots now than there were previously.
Yeah, probably. So then and then the actual gaming part of the convention was on 3 levels. So you were on the lobby, which was kind of hidden. They had the hobby haven, or the area where you could go repair your models, and a bunch of other seminars and BattleTech down kind of the hallway.
Yeah, the RPGs, like the Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and stuff. All of those rooms were in there on the lobby level.
Well, there was another one for RPGs too on the second level, past the hall where Age of Sigmar. So then you come down escalators, you come down the elevator, and then you have it
was the terrace,
which had access to the outside, and that's where the Capital Palette painting competition was.
Yep,
that's where the vendor hall was. That's where the AOS or fantasy style of games. So they also had Star Wars and Middle Earth and all of those games in one large traditional convention hall.
Yep.
And then down the back hallway there was even more RPG rooms.
Mm-hmm. And even in the same room as where those games were going on, there was side rooms. I don't know if you guys stumbled into any of those or not, but I did by accident a couple of times. And there was RPG rooms in the AOS hall, and there was painting. Cool. I don't know if you guys saw those or not, but there were several across the whole side of it. So there was a lot of stuff in there too.
That's cool.
And then
that's where Underworlds was, and it was nice for Underworlds to be in an actual gaming hall and not in a seminar sized room.
It was nice to be able to spread out and actually have some space to put your stuff and not feel cramped
and not sit on top of people. And then you got to the concourse level.
Yeah, which was all the way downstairs, which the ballroom was huge.
And that's where 40K was.
That's where all of 40K was.
It's where the preview was. So it was cool to have the preview be in the same room as the 40K hall.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the GW store. So the GW store was actually in the same ballroom as the 40K games were being played, in the same ballroom that the preview was held.
And
so that was cool.
I think that worked out well. One, because it was a bigger space. And two, it felt because it was such a bigger space, even when there was a line, it didn't feel crowded. There was 2 ways in and out of that store. It felt like it flowed to me a whole lot better.
Yes. Yep. And then also on the concourse level was the gaming lounge, which if you listen to last year's episode, we had some feedback regarding the gaming lounge. But I think they nailed it this year. It was centrally located. You come off the elevators, and to get anywhere else on the concourse floor, you had to kind of skirt the edge of the gaming lounge, which meant that it made it really easy to interact with the people that were there. It made it a really easy place to meet people, to then go somewhere else, or as we used it, to just basically hang out at night after our events were done. Mm-hmm. And then down the hall from that was the Marvel Crisis Protocol room, the Malifaux room, and then
Infinity
some of the demos.
was down that way. Infinity,
Heresy
events were that way.
And these rooms were all traditional style conference rooms that they open up the sliding doors and it's one big space, and then they just break the tables up. And like Jerod was mentioning, down this hall, in the hall itself, in the hallway, I should say, not the hall, in the hallway, was a bunch of tables for demos. A lot of demos. A lot of, like, it was really, really cool. Spent a lot of time in that hallway, which we'll get to. So
yeah. But
so anyway, preview. So then we kind of learn the lay of the land.
Yep.
We get in our room, and then we go to the preview. Preview was exactly like always, line up. I think that would be my only critique is they didn't have any display on our badges this year, so that we didn't know if we had a ticket or didn't have a ticket. Not that it mattered, because that ballroom was like, could have held, I don't know, 10,000 people.
Yeah, easy.
Like, so
it was huge.
Although I think
didn't read
that
the
they
signage
were
to see what the fireman says, but it's a lot.
So I think that they were trying to limit the number of people, because it wasn't as cool as in 2018 when we all got a free Sister Battle under our chair. But we did all get a $10 off coupon to the on-site GW store, as participants in the preview. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was cool.
There was 200 tickets to it, right? So there was 200 of us that got that coupon. But anyway, everyone got in. Even if you were on the wait list, you might have just got a coupon. And the preview was a little bit different. So normally it is 2 GW employees standing in front of a room, and they go through a PowerPoint presentation. They show you the new stuff, and then they talk a little bit about it. And then at the end, you can ask questions. This time it was pre-recorded, so it was a little bit quicker. I do think that the photography and the artwork that we got to see was a little bit better because it was kind of pre-recorded. Yeah. But then instead of doing a Q&A in a big setting, they kind of dispersed, and then they made themselves available in the lounge, which was just outside.
Right.
But before we get to any of that, what was your guys' favorite thing in this preview? Trace, if you could pick one thing in the preview that you're like, oh, I'm glad I was here tonight, what would that be?
I really like that troll.
You're a troll.
The new troll character was pretty cool.
Trug, the Troggoth King.
The Troggoth King was really, really neat.
With the waystone growing on his back.
Yeah, he's big. He's real big. He's a big troll. He looks like a proper troll special character. I forgot what the name of the Dankhold Troggoth, I think is the name of it.
Dankhold.
The big one? The other big one?
Dankhold.
Dankhold, yes.
There's
sounded like you said Dankhold. I was like, all right.
You say, Jason. So, but those are the previous characters. Like there was one that was holding out the goblin to like smack him.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the actual non-character version. But this guy looks the part. Big old antler horns and his captured temple on the back.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. It's just nice to see Gloomspite get a nice centerpiece model like that that's a little more up to date, rather than just having a bunch of older Ragnarok spiders running around. So that's nice. He was one of my favorites. But let somebody else go next.
Yeah.
Jerod.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it was cool to be in the room we all knew it was coming because they did not win the campaign. And so the Tyranid got their new line previewed before the Space Marines did. But it was cool to be in the room when the new Space Marines were revealed, because it is such a popular faction, and like just the energy and the excitement. I mean, even for me, like some of them look really cool. I don't know if I was still playing it, but at one point I had like a 60% scout army in Space Marines. And to see like the new scouts in like the Primaris scale and that level of detail, like those look really cool. But just all of the new Space Marines, I think it's just cool to see, more units get that glow up, to get that scale and to get that level of detail. Is pretty exciting.
Which one's your favorite?
I think the scouts definitely stole the show for me as far as the Space Marine portion of it. But for a number of reasons, the models look awesome. Like scouts have always looked cool. I don't know what it is about, kind of having fatigues underneath armor. But like there was a statement that said that scouts were getting kind of nixed.
Right.
They were going to the, I forget what they call it, but
Legends.
They were getting legend. Yeah. But now they're going to have an entry in the codex. So guess my scouts, I can still use them because they're on 32. So that's good.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm also very curious to see the lore line that goes with scouts. Now, we know previously scouts were, the developing Space Marines. But when they went to Primaris, they kind of jumped that, right? Like they were engineered and made in VATS, and they hadn't really gone through how the chapters were creating new Space Marines.
Right.
Like, so I'm very interested to see this scout lore integrated back into the original lore, and that they're just Primarisized and they still go through the scout training and all that.
Yeah. Like, do they become fully fledged Space Marines and these are just like upscaled, and then they have to cross the Rubicon Primaris? Or do they get like all of the new organs, like as part of that initial indoctrination, and then they still have to go through the scout training, be part of the 10th company, all of that stuff? Yeah. That's a good question. And I also would like to know the answer to that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I did like the company command squad too. I thought that.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's such a great callback.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jason? What was your favorite reveal?
I mean, obviously Underworlds was my favorite reveal, right? Which I think we'll get to in a second, because we can't be an Underworlds podcast without talking about that preview.
Right.
But Fulgrim was,
oh my gosh,
amazing. And then it was a little bit crushed, but it's still amazing, right? So we had this debate driving up that what's the next step for, like, what's the biggest thing? And Trace always would say Angron or something.
It was forever Angron. It was always Angron.
Yeah,
it was always
forever. And we all had our things that we said or would say. And Fulgrim was brought up, and I was like, no, it can't be Fulgrim, because we just got the new box. We're going to get Terminators. We're going to get this. We're going to get that. Why would they elevate their marketing campaign? They just don't need that spark right now. And I thought I thought my logic was sound. And then we get to, like, they teased it before the video saying there's something real special at the end. And then Fulgrim pops up. And everything that I thought Fulgrim should be, this model is. So I'm sitting there going, holy cow, I am completely wrong. And holy cow, they crushed it.
Oh my gosh.
And then the heresy emblem flashed up, and I was like, wait a minute, now I'm lost a little bit. So yeah, it's a heresy model, and it is a little disappointing that it's a resin model. But I think the most disappointing thing for me is this is what I wanted for Fulgrim. So what are they going to do when they bring it out into 40K?
Yeah.
Like, how do you push it from here? And I trust them. I totally trust them. But this model, like the snake body, the multiple arms, the wings, like his face that looks like perfection. Like it's
he's
so
beautiful.
Good. He is pretty gorgeous.
But like terrible at the same time. Like, yeah, I'll be curious to see kind of how that works itself out if and when they finally reveal him as a 40K model. But they were very clear, like the article itself is very clear. No, this model won't be getting rules for Warhammer 40K. So, I mean, that, you know, that's not going to stop somebody from homebrewing some rules and putting them down on the table, but we still don't have an Emperor's Children book, so I'm sure, you know, he's the last of the marked,
the marked demon primarchs.
Yep. We've got Nurgles, we've got Corns.
It was amazing.
A
little disappointing, but an amazing model.
Yep. Yeah. So good.
So then we get to Underworlds in Death Gorge.
Yeah.
So thoughts on?
It was not Ice Hole. It was not Cold Stone.
Oh, Cold Stone would have been amazing.
I think they would have gotten in trouble for that.
Come fold your ice cream.
Yeah. So there had been whispers, you know, amongst the internets, amongst the Underworlds community that, you know, because AOS and Warcry seem to be moving into like the frozen wastelands of Gur, that Warhammer Underworlds would be following suit. So there was a large assumption that it would be kind of ice-based, ice-themed, frozen-themed. And I mean, the board bears itself out in that way, but these warbands are anything but cold. No, I will say that.
They're not cold.
They are on fire. So, Jason, you want to talk about the Thricefold Discord?
Yeah, so just to do a quick preview, because we'll get into in-depth when these finally release and get into all their cards and their tricks and stuff. So, but just to go over the models, you know, this is a 3-fighter warband. The big guy is kind of scary looking.
I mean, he is.
They're all
so scary. He's got a claw.
It's like a bloated demonette.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he looks like.
He has a claw like the cow, right? So
yeah, like Slake Slash, yes.
Slake Slash from the other Slash warband. But yeah, it has a tongue. It has a tentacle.
No, that's a tongue, sir.
Okay.
Anyway.
But he is bloated. He has a tail. I mean, I don't know.
It's got like a big old spear.
Yeah, a big spear, but I don't remember seeing his card. So
I thought we had seen it.
I think they showed it in the video.
The video. Why don't you? I'm gonna watch this video real quick. Oh, there's Cyreni's.
There's another one.
Yep. There it is. Vexmore. 5 wounds.
Nice.
Range 2 smash, 3 damage.
And then he's got range 2 though, right?
Range 2 smash, 3 damage, and then he's got Locus of Indolence. Oh, he's a level 1 wizard too. 2 shields. Ooh. Oh, that's inspired. That's his inspired side. Okay. Ooh. All right. Locus of Indolence, -1 damage to a minimum of 1 to attack actions that target this fighter if there are no successes in this fighter's defense roll. That's pretty spicy. So, if you manage not to roll any shields or crits, here, have a -1 damage. It's like a reverse worm spat.
Yep. I like that though. Cool. I like that a lot, cool. Actually.
Yeah, that's cool. Vexmore.
It'll make him a lot more resilient than you think.
It definitely looks like he should be 5 wounds though from the model. So
yeah, he's got a lot of meat on his bones.
1 tubby.
2 tubby. Yes.
And then from there, there's a sorcerer. I don't really can't tell gender. So
yeah, a sorcerer them.
Sorcerer them.
It's Slaanesh.
Yeah, she looks female, but
yeah.
Once again with a little claw, a lot of tentacles.
She's got tentacles for legs.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Good stuff. And then an assassin that has like all the blades. And this is one of those models that I don't know if the picture is going to do it justice. Like,
no, not right.
Because this picture makes it look very flat, and I just know when you're holding this model, it's going to be freaking sick. Like with swords and daggers and claws and just coming at you.
Yeah. No, it's like a super demonette.
Yeah, but the whole style of this warband is demonette styles, which I thought was cool because we haven't seen a ton of demon-esque models in Underworlds. Like we have the Gore Chosen and we have the Nurgle, which have demon style, but this is kind of like the next level.
They're more corrupted humans than they are actual demons. The first one we actually saw with some real demon leaning into it was Tzeentch, the new Tzeentch.
Yeah, that's true. With Ephilim. And then this is definitely a trio of soul-seeking demons. So the lore behind them is that they are constantly feuding, but that is a source of irritation to the Hedonites. And quote, they've been punished for their endless squabbling by Celesk, the Vengeful Allegiance, and must work together to recover 666 souls from the frozen depths of Death Gorge as penance.
That was all in the video? I don't remember that.
Well, this is in the article.
That's in the article.
Yeah.
If nothing else, like if folks don't buy it for the game, if you play Hedonites of Slaanesh, you have 3 awesome heralds now.
Yeah. Well, and if history serves, typically the Warhammer Underworlds warbands get some pretty spicy rules in Age of Sigmar too.
They do, but if you don't want to use them that way, it's kind of what I'm saying.
Here's 3 heralds.
You've got 3 heralds that are just full of character. Awesome. Just awesome.
They're so good. Yep.
And speaking of the souls they want to take back with them to Celeste.
I know. Somebody else wants some souls. The Sirene's Razors.
I mean, the only thing you really need to know about this warband is it has like a squid. So
it's got a squid.
And he's actually pretty big. Like if you look in the picture up there, he's just as big as what's his face? Or the big bloated dude. He's a big boy.
Sephenir is the name of that squid. Yeah, he is a big boy. Yep, but Cyrene, let's see, I got her card pulled up. So Inspired, she's a level 2 caster. 5 move, 1 block, 4 wounds. She only has 1 attack, which is a range 2 cast on channels for 2 damage. So 2 dice for channels and crits. That's not bad, but she has the Hammer Tide action, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all of the text for this. I'll be able to get close, though. It is an action. Place the scatter token in this fighter's hex. Draw a straight line from the center of the token in the direction indicated by the hammer symbol. So you don't roll. You just place the scatter hex. That's nice. The first time this line enters a hex occupied by an enemy fighter, deal damage. I'm going to assume 1 to that enemy fighter and stagger that fighter is what it looks like it says. I cannot imagine that you get to do like more than 1 damage for free, right? With no roll involved at all, but just an on-card action to plink for 1.
It's pretty good.
And stagger. Seems pretty tight.
It's pretty good.
Also, she's a 4 wound elf, so
that's a change.
So staying in line with the other Idoneth
one,
warband, right? Whose
it's
name?
It's not like that that wood elf one that has a 3 wound leader, right?
Yep. Or the Lumineth one that has a 3 wound leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But they have a banhammer. So.
They do have a banhammer. Yep. Are those jellyfish or other squids on?
Those are jellyfishes.
That's so cool.
Or they're little like.
I don't know what
they're like squiddy jellies. I don't know what they are. They're cool looking though.
They are cool looking. It adds a lot of motion to her base, which is cool.
I like the alternate blades on the other 2 additional thralls that are with her.
Oh yeah, the Namartis.
Yeah, those are like true. Those are true Namarti thralls. Those.
Oh yeah, so one's got like a glaive and a lantern. That's cool. Oh, they both have glaives.
They both have glaives. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There's potential for lots of range 2 fighters there.
Yeah.
Except for the squid. The squid's probably not going to be range 2. That's cool.
It would be cool if you reduced movement by 1 if you were close to him.
That'd be spicy.
It would be cool.
He does have all them tentacles. And then we're going to get 2 new rivals decks. So Breakneck Slaughter, which has got like a skull comet for the symbol. And Force of Frost, which I'm pretty sure is like, I don't know, something is breathing ice.
It looks like a stylized ice bear blowing frost on you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for them, though, whatever they are.
And then if you look in the artwork in the article, too, like the frozen giant in there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a very, very clearly like a destruction icon that's frozen.
Oh, I found one of the souls that the Discord are looking for. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. They just got to dig it in the ice.
Dig it out, or the Ideneth got to dig it out. They both want souls. It's a good pairing.
I like it. I like it. It fits with the very cold theme of the board too. Like both of those warbands have a lot of blues and purples and stuff in them, so that's cool.
Yeah,
they fit. I like it.
Any other closing remarks, Jason, before we move on?
No, I'm very excited. Like I like what you guys said, the board, the color. I'm always interested to see the color change from season to season.
Yeah.
Having the blue back is great. On the board itself, we can see, the new objectives. It looks like there's still lethal and cover hexes and blocked hexes. So yeah, I'm just excited to get it as always. The warbands will always be, and I was looking up, it does, if you still it and zoom in, it does appear that hammer tide is, it says hammer symbol. The first time this line enters a hex occupied by N, and then you can't read it, enemy fighter deal, which is bolded, and then you can't read it, damage to the blank fighter. So I think it is just 1. Which is still cool.
I would be sending a very quick email to whunderworlds@gwplc.com if that's too damaged, because that feels real strong.
Got some email to Jim
Underworlds. Anyway, so that was the preview. It closed out. So they closed out the preview with Mr. Fulgrim. And then there was a crazy long line at the GW store because everybody was trying to spend their $10 gift certificate,
burning a hole
or whatever. And then there were a bunch of people that hung out with the GW Nova staff in the lounge and chatted them up. One thing that we didn't mention is that we met Brian and Skylar from What the Hex Cast.
We did, and they sat with us during the preview.
Wednesday. They did.
That will be a recurring theme throughout the podcast, is hanging out with Brian and Skylar.
Yeah.
And that's, that's why we
Nova.
Yeah, that's why we go to Nova. So it was great to meet them and a few others. Like we got to see people that night from years past. But Skylar and Brian, between recording the episode, playing with them online, and just talking to them over the years, it was finally great to finally meet them. So we got to sit through the preview, and then we hung out with them, kind of the rest of the night. But I don't even remember what we did night one.
We played 40K.
Oh, we did play Warhammer 40K. Yep.
It was quite memorable. You sat there and read your rule book, and then when they came back from their dinner with some folks, you played
Lorcana
card game with them.
Yeah. So
night one done. Bedtime.
Night one done at 2:30 in the morning for me.
For you.
So I walked away.
Yeah, right. As you just left us.
I did.
To go into some games played, so we've often done this is when we showed up and we knew that they were going to do it again, is after the preview, we found a little corner of the hall, the main 40K hall, and got some models on the table, at least you two did. And, I do want to give a shout out to Trace. He had this whole narrative story planned out. He typed up this wonderful prologue. He had missions tied into this wonderful campaign that we were going to run. So the setting was there, and then it was Eldar against some demons, and that went well, right? For the demons.
Went well for the demons. Yep. I mean, we don't need to belabor this point. I think that we all want to like 40K. I made this analogy. I don't know if I came up with it or if somebody else did, but 40K, I think, at the large scale, for me, it's going to be like that ex-partner that I have really fond memories of. I have no ill will towards, but we've just grown apart. The time is not for us to be together anymore. And that's not to say that we won't come back together. We don't need to dig down into this analogy too far, but I don't begrudge anyone for enjoying 40K. There's a lot to enjoy there. The lore, I think, will always capture me. The aesthetic will always capture me. I'm going to finish painting up the Eldari Combat Patrol. I have a ton of Grey Knights that I'm not going to get rid of. So, I can pick it up and set it on the table and play a game with it. But I don't know for the short term if it will be my first choice of game going forward.
Fair. And then just to give more context to this, so that night wrapped up. Did get a game of Lorcana in with Brian and Skylar, which was great. Then we kind of headed to bed. We got up at a normal time the next day and headed back down to the hall where there was games going on. And we got in another game, and I got 1,000 points of Necrons on, and this is where the narrative really, really kicked in. So, Trace had modified the Crusade missions to kind of fit our campaign. I was looking forward to it. I had a list that really revolved around, I was called the Resurrector. So obviously my list rezzed a lot of units. Turn one went like this for me. I did nothing. Turn one for Jerod went like this. He did something, but did nothing. And it felt pretty good, actually. Like it was like, we're kind of trading blows and not getting anything done. And then my res orbs just kicked in, and next thing you know, my 20-man block of Necron warriors, which I misplayed, have you? I was in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to veil over here to this corner of the table, get my secondary objective, kill Jared's unit, and then just kind of come back and do all this. But I forgot to do that. So they were sitting mid-table, which in hindsight worked out for me. I just sat here and you tried to kill me and I didn't die. And then I won.
Yep. That's about how that went. The game was back and forth until I made the mistake of getting stuck into that unit.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that a Wraith Lord and a Yinkarn would have been able to take down 20 Necron warriors, but it turns out that was not the case.
Well, you just needed to take out my my healing bot, which allowed me to trigger my reanimation protocols every single time twice that they went off. So,
yep.
Yeah. So in that game, at the end of the game, I had fun, but there was a point in the game where I knew my opponent wasn't having fun, and that was my biggest problem with 40K when I was really, really into it. Is there just was a lot of those moments. So I think to echo what you're saying, Jerod, is I understand the appeal of 40K. I'm not going to talk ill of 40K, but the current things that I'm looking for when I sit down at a gaming table do not align to what 40K is, but it still is a fun. I mean, there was 350 people there playing 40K in the GT. Like, obviously, there's a lot of people that like that game, so that's okay.
Yeah. So we did that, and that ate up most of the morning, right? So so then it was lunchtime, and we went. Oh yeah, so that morning we discovered the deli. Grandma and Grandpa dishing out $7 breakfast sandwiches.
They were not prepared.
10 minutes at a time. And then we went back there for lunch because they had lunch sandwiches.
Best deal on the block.
Oh, for sure.
Best deal on the block. Sandwiches were great. Breakfast sandwiches were great. Lunch sandwiches were great. Skylar and Brian went with us for lunch that day, which was nice. But yeah, it was just a little mom and pop shop, just a little sandwich shop with some donuts and some beverages. They probably get 10 people on the day on a normal day, I would imagine. And here it is, a 3,500 person convention across the street.
Yeah.
And they had to make an emergency order to their baker for some croissants and bagels.
All I remember is Brian going to the guy. He's like, "It's going to be busy for the next 4 days." And the gentleman was like, 4 days?
Yeah. Yeah. His jaw dropped.
Yeah. It was really funny. They were cute though. It was fun to watch them interact with each other when they were working, because you could just tell that they're just in their own little pace and they just do the best they can. But it was good food. Good food.
It was good.
And then we came back and so started the gaming hall, right? This is the day it all started.
Yep.
Rim Racers was the next thing.
Yeah. Was Rim Racers that day?
No, it was the next day.
Was it?
Yeah, I thought Rim Racers was on Friday.
Yeah.
I think this is Dune Imperium.
This is Dune Imperium. So,
that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
We did play Dune.
We came back to the hall. We went to the board game lounge. And I don't remember. I walked away. Like I was doing something else. Don't know what.
Yeah, I had walked away too. I don't remember. I think maybe you and I had like gone to take our stuff back up or something. I don't remember.
Anyway.
But we came back down to the board game lounge, and Skylar is setting up Dune Imperium and is walking people through, and you and I sit back down at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And we played through that game. It was a ton of fun. And it felt very Dune-y. Like
it definitely had a lot of the theme that you would expect from a Dune game.
Yeah,
I was impressed with that one.
Yeah, so anybody that isn't familiar with it, I would call it a combination of Dominion, deck building, where you're building your game engine by purchasing cards to go into your deck that you then play, and then a meeple placement game like Agricola. So you have to gather resources. You have to place your meeples in the right places to gather those resources. And then the cards interact with the meeple placement and all that stuff. But ultimately, like the goal is to become the most powerful house, on Arrakis. And so even if you don't know Dune, I think it still plays fine. I think it feels a lot better if you know who like the characters are on Dune. Like Jason and Amon were a two-headed ogre playing House Atreides with Paul at the lead, and they were very excited to get Duncan, Idaho.
That's right. We might have over leveraged our hand to buy that card, but
you may have.
Got it. We got it.
But it was worth it.
It was very satisfying to steal Gurney from them.
Yes,
it was.
Yeah. That's okay because I got the Kwisatz Haderach.
You sure did.
I did.
That did some work for you.
It did. Not enough though.
Not enough because at the end of the game, I could have been a good friend and a nice ally,
and just not your friend win,
and just not got into the mix. But that is not Dune.
It is not Dune.
I think what I liked about that game was that I don't feel like any of us ever felt out of it. Like any one of those turns, if they had gone a different way, could have been Jason winning or me winning or Brian or Jerod winning.
Yeah.
Which was fun. Like having it that close and coming down to the last couple turns was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It was a good time. Thank you, Skylar, for showing us the ropes.
Yeah. Yep.
So this makes loss number 3 for Jerod on the week.
You are not defined by your losses.
I know that, but this comes up later. So this comes up later.
That's fine.
It's fine. It comes into play later. And then what did we get into Thursday night? We played Dune Imperium. Was that tie dinner night?
Yes, that was tie dinner because we finished up kind of late with Dune Imperium.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was kind of late. And then we got into the Thai place and got ordered right before they closed, but we weren't the last ones there. So I didn't feel bad.
Jason stayed there. I'm not sure what Jason got into because he didn't come join us for Thai.
We came back.
We did come back, but
I don't remember.
You did something.
That's a blur. We were out late again that night.
We were. I mean, yeah, that was a 3:00 night playing down there, but I don't remember what else we got into because it was the next night was Liar's Dice. So Friday night was Liar's Dice.
Yeah.
I really don't recall.
I don't remember what we did Thursday night.
It was so much fun. We don't remember.
Well, I know. Trace is over here going mentat on us trying to scan his memory banks.
That's not coming up, man. What did we do? We were up late that night.
I don't remember, man. That's funny.
That's weird.
Makes for good media right now.
Excellent radio.
That's for sure. All right, sweet. So day 3, Friday. I can't sleep, so, I'm still up early. So this is now 2 nights in a row where I've gotten 5 or less hours of sleep. And we get a message from Danny early-ish in the morning that he is on his way.
Yeah, I mean, the whole plan for Friday was just to play as many demos as possible.
Yeah.
So this was like, we went to the hall, the vendor hall to look at stuff. I got to try In Country, so played a demo of that, which is a realistic shooter style miniature game.
It's modern,
like real
modern
quick
setting.
Yeah, real quick games, very lethal. A lot of cool rules in it. My biggest the reason I didn't buy in is I'm not sold on building a modern table. So like that's a whole new terrain set, a whole new any of that. But the game itself was actually fun. The way that ranges work and the way that the roll to hit, cover, and all that wonderful game mechanics was very, very fun.
Yeah.
And then we went down and played a demo of Conquest and spent a lot of time there. So a lot of cool games, or a lot of cool mechanics in that game. It's a rank and flank, large battle Conquest game, which has a cool. The two things that I took away from the mechanics of that game were the orders. So you have a card pool where you draw the cards, and that kind of shows you what you activate on the board, which is all
you set that order. It's not random,
all predetermined. And then the fact that your units walk on, so not everything is deployed on the battlefield to start the game.
Yep.
Like your Vanguard units arrive, then your heavier units arrive turns after that, and it's a fluid, active kind of battlefield as your units arrive onto the pitch. So,
and it's I think that he said like 9 or 10 turns.
It's 10 turns.
10 turns, yeah. So it's not a short number of turns, but it's alternating activation. So like you're very active in every turn. I mean, Trace just today sent like a 2,000 point list, and it's not that many units. So it's not like, you're going to have a ton of activations. You got to imagine that some of your Vanguard units are going to have been wiped out by the time your heaviest units get onto the table. So I can imagine the game playing fairly quickly.
From what I've seen, it plays a lot quicker than you think. Most games are probably done in around 90 minutes.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
And there's some things that I learned about this too, Jason, that you'll be interested to know, that are tied to the card mechanic. So when you reveal a card, there's certain abilities that can proc off of that reveal. So like you'll get like on activation abilities that you can do, which I thought would be interesting to you because I know you like that like reveal step stuff. Where like a good example would be you get to make an additional move action or shoot action, or you get shields or whatever. Like when you do your flip over, when you do your reveal, like your defense goes up, stuff like that. So there's a lot of really cool abilities and things in the game. I am intrigued heavily by that game.
Yeah, well, I'm intrigued because there are orcs riding dinos. And, I mean, who doesn't want to put a Brachiosaurus and a T-Rex on the table alongside some Triceratops riding orcs and Raptor riding orcs and just raptors?
It looks like one of those Triceratops riding orcs actually has a cowboy hat on, which
what?
I found amazing.
He will be named Muldoon.
Of course, yes.
Muldoon the Wardroon.
And Jason, you I think you enjoyed the demo when you played.
Well, he got to use Minotaurs, so
yeah, you got to like smash some dudes with Minotaurs.
Yeah, I mean, to say that enjoy the demo, yes, but it was more just talking about game mechanics and looking at models. The demo was not. I mean, demo
was not a full scope yet. Very basic.
Very basic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that out of all the demos that I played this weekend that was my most favorite, only because the way that the demo was set up, it was like, here's like you move, you charge, there's magic. Like we're just showing you the basics. So
yeah. Go ahead.
One other thing that we did discover that was really neat about that game is that you only unlock certain units, but based on what characters you bring for each warband that you add to your army. So it's not like you can't just spam certain units unless they are part of your mainstay units. So if you have it requires you to bring some level of like core troop or things that are aligned with whatever character you're bringing. So I thought that was interesting too.
Yep. So then after that, we played, I think, what was our favorite demo. I think all of us were ready to pull our wallets out and give Warsenal money like immediately. And that is REM Racers. So REM Racers. It is created by Corvus Belli, the creators of Infinity. And it is Mario Kart, the board game.
Yep.
And it plays exactly like you would expect. You can knock into other vehicles. You can shoot other vehicles. You can lay down oil slicks. There's flamethrowers. There's mines. And it is
sheer chaos.
Yeah, it's pure chaos. And when I bumped into Jason and knocked him back into his oil slick, and then he slid into the mine
that I placed in front of him.
And then I don't know what I blew up. It was amazing. It was awesome.
Yeah. So, just for our listeners, like you could have up to 5 carts on the board in this version of the game. The table is kind of like tile based, but not like hexes, but like tile pieces.
Yeah.
So the board game can be laid out in multiple different configurations. And the big,
like a train set.
Yeah, kind of like a train set. Exactly. The big mechanic here, though, is you have a controller, like a video game controller looking dashboard, and you have speed on the one side. And that speed, which, could be 1, 2, 3, 4, determines what movement templates you have access to. And once you touch a movement template, you have to use it. So, and for anyone that's ever played X-Wing, like, how this can get tricky. Like, can I make this pass? Can I get around this corner without running into the side of the board? Whatever it may be. And that's really where the fun of the game is you pick these templates and you have to move the whole template. And if you bash into anything, stuff happens. As you move around the board, you're going to draw cards, and those cards give you access to weapons or oil slicks or mines, all these things we're talking about. And then there is a small dice mechanic to kind of hit and dodge and all of that, all of the basic wargaming mechanics. But this truly is a board game, and it truly just plays like Mario Kart. We laughed. I'm
my gosh,
so thankful that the lady from Arsenal allowed us to play a whole game, because it was probably an hour and a half that we were down there just playing and having a good old time. It was fantastic. So that will be a definite purchase when it comes out. Now, for most of us, it's not your traditional tabletop game. It's not like you're going to buy this and buy a bunch of other stuff. But for us, for a quick meetup and play, or for our families, like, this is going to fit the niche perfectly.
Yep. And we'll link to it. I think the pre-order is going to go up in October.
Yep.
They were telling us, with a ship date of November or December, just depending on fulfillment and procurement and all of those things. But it is 100% on the buy list. I think for all three of us.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was prepared. I was ready. I was like, can I take this copy home with me today? Unfortunately,
I think if we had been able to walk away with that, we would have played it 3 or 4 more times over the weekend.
Yeah, we definitely would have busted it out in the board game lounge.
Yeah.
Yep. So then Danny shows up.
We get dinner or whatever it is, and this is the night where this is the night you guys all go. You're like, we're just gonna go, and I'm like, I'm not leaving the board game room. This is where I'm gonna be.
This is where I live. Anyway, so Liar's Dice. So it's been advertised, it's Liar's Dice for charity. Like, they've been talking about it the whole convention. And I am convinced that I'm going to be horrible at this game. So I don't even pretend like I'm going to sit down at a table. But Jason, I think at this point you were already at a table.
Yeah. So Brian paid for everybody to get in the first time. And then that's where, so Danny and I came walking out we were over in the 40K hall. We came walking out and Brian was like, are you going to play? I was like, sure. I don't even know what it is. So I sat down, you guys came back. Next thing you know, everyone's at a table playing Liar's Dice of some kind. I'm failing miserably. So I'm out.
Yeah. So for anyone that isn't familiar, Liar's Dice is a game. If you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, you have seen Liar's Dice played. It's the game with the cups and the dice, and you say how many dice of a certain value are on the whole table. And somebody can either agree with you, and then they have to kind of up the ante after you, or they can call you. And if they call you and they're wrong, then they lose one of their dice. When you run out of dice, you're off the table. If they call you and you were right, then you lose one of yours, vice versa. Anyway,
Barbosa keeps your soul.
Yeah, Barbosa keeps your soul. And so it's the game that Bill Turner was using to protect Will Turner from playing. And so in my mind, having not ever played it, I'm assuming that this is now like a lying, bidding style game, which is not for me. So anybody that has listened to the episode where we've talked about the real estate game, which is a bidding game. It is not for me. I do not do well. No, there's no way. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to play Liar's Dice. This is not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun for me, and it's not going to be fun for the people that are playing at the table. Like, I'm just going to give somebody a win here, right? Because that's what happens when I play poker. If I play poker and I put money in, I am just giving my money away. I'm just paying money to play this game for the shortest amount of time as anyone else at the table. It turns out that Liar's Dice is a math game. And I can't turn that part of my brain off. Drunk, not drunk. Tired, not tired. My brain is just running probabilities. And do you know who the worst person to sit next to in a game of Liar's Dice is? Somebody that is always telling the truth, as far as they understand it. So whoever was sitting to the left of me in every game that I played was like, I hate you. And I'm like, I'm just playing the game. There are 9 2s, and there's no way there's 9 2s. And I'm like, there's 54 dice on the table. I know how many 2s I have. I know that 3 other people before me have said that they have had 2s. I'm telling you, there's 9 2s. And then they're like, no, there's no way. And then there's like 10 2s. And I'm like, I told you. I'm just telling the truth. But the struggle comes if as the numbers get higher, you have to like outbid either the number of dice or the value of the dice. And so it just gets tough if you get like further in on the table. But it turns out that I was actually pretty good at the game. And then Jason, you got booted off your table originally, but then you came back. Oh no, that was another
no. So yes. Yeah. So you're in the tournament or the charity tournament. I get off the table. I go over. Danny is not playing because although we say it's a charity tournament, it was like buy dice tournament at one point.
It was a buy dice tournament, and I totally abused that a couple of times. But anyway, so we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, Danny and I go to the other table, and I've always wanted to try Terraforming Mars. So next thing you know, Trace is out. You, Skylar, and Brian are still playing Liar's Dice till forever, right? So
forever.
You're just going and going. We start to play Terraforming Mars. You get to
setting up a whole nother 2 people thinking that you guys might join us at some point. That never happens.
Never happened. So I make it to the championship table, and I think that there are 9 of us at this table when we sit down. So I'm just going and I'm just playing the game as it's played. And then Todd, who runs the Table War Charities, who all of the charity money, like the buy-in for the Liar's Dice was going to, was giving out the prizes. Like there were Table War gift certificates and Nova swag and all this stuff. He sits down at the table and says, all right, so I'm here, and for $10 you can buy a dice back. And so, like that kind of goes around. Well, he sits down first and he says, for $10 everybody can buy an extra die. And we're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. But everybody at the table has to do it. And then like one person doesn't. And we're like, you're silly. But anyway, so we all do it. And then like shenanigans happen. So like somebody buys in late. And so they pay like whatever, $40 to get 3 dice. And then I'm like, well, I don't want you to sit there. So I look at Todd and I say, I will give you $20 if I get to pick where he sits. And Todd's like, yeah, that seems fair. And so there's all of these shenanigans going around. I pay like another $20 later to like switch 2 people's seats because I don't like them sitting next to each other because they're like clearly in cahoots with each other. So I need some space between them. So between paying to win and doing probability, I end up finishing 3rd place and cashing out with a $75 Table War gift certificate. So probably a net negative by the time you count all my donations, but still, it was for charity.
Yeah.
So, but I had a lot of fun.
And I figured out what we were doing before this.
Nice.
We played God Tier.
Oh yeah.
For a little bit to try that out. And then you guys were playing Lorcana right before we went out. And then
we tucked into the board game room.
And we also played a demo of Warcrow.
We did play a demo of Warcrow.
So there was lots of other demos that happened.
Yeah. So the backup Warcrow, very similar to, I would almost put it on. So Warcrow, if you're not familiar, by Corvus Belli. It's kind of like high fantasy squad based that's coming out next spring. It looks very complicated when you first sit down and look at the cards, the unit cards. But to me, it plays a lot like MCP. So it had this like kind of dice mechanic that felt like MCP. On Thursday night, to fill in the memory gaps, we went downstairs, and Don and Matt were down there playing Underworlds. So Jerod and I played Loricana that night as well. Nice. And then we just browsed through the Adeptus Titanicus Hall, which was really cool to see all that stuff out there. And then we taught Skylar and Brian how to play MCP.
Oh, that's right.
And you and
that was the late
Don
night, the previous night. Yeah,
played MCP that night. So that was before Liar's Dice. That's what. So we played Dune Imperium, then went over there. In the meantime, Jerod showed up, and that's when I got to say, like, everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I'm not leaving here. And literally the next 3 days I stayed down there.
Yep.
So then fast forward back to Friday night. You're in Liar's Dice. We're playing Mars, Terraforming Mars, which is a really fun game. It's me, Danny, and Trace. Very fun game. It takes a little bit to get going, but again, it's this kind of like deck building, resource management. You kind of get all your resources going, and we're buying all these projects and probably playing it not the most efficiently, but not one, but two people walk over that are extremely, maybe had one or two Chardonnays on the walk over there, and try to, like, we're almost done. Like, there's like 15 minutes left in the game, and they're like, you should be playing like this. It's like, yeah, we've been playing this for 2 hours. Like, just let us finish it. So we finished that right about when you finish Liar's Dice. And this is the night after Liar's Dice, everyone goes to dinner. And I'm like, I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here. Amon invited me to a game of cockroach poker at the main table down there. And I love, like, we learned how to play cockroach poker last year. So I sit down, we play cockroach poker with a couple of the GW staffers, a couple of the Nova staffers, and just, people that we've met over the years. Then you guys come back from dinner, and it evolves into Liar's Dice again. And this is where, like, if I had to sum up Nova, for me, this is what Nova is. It's just a bunch of people that, like, have made friendships over the years and making new friendships in this setting, playing a game that doesn't really matter.
Nope.
To all hours of the night. And again, I suck at Liar's Dice because I don't do the probability. Like, it took me a minute to even understand how to, like, raise and all this other stuff. So I get out fairly early, but Bridget does not. But Bridget is doing other things. So,
like running the board game checkout.
Right. So I end up by playing her dice, and somehow I, like, make it with her dice till the last three people.
Yeah.
And then so she comes back. She beats Nick Nanavati at the end, and all is right in the world.
That's right.
So that was Friday night. And Tracy, I think you had gone to bed, but Jerod, it was like 3 o'clock.
It was an early night for me. That was my early night. I went to bed at like midnight that night.
Yeah, Friday night extended for us, Jason.
Yes, but we're not going to talk about the fact that we sung karaoke. No, we're not going to.
Why would we not do that? Listen, when you sing Sweet Caroline, you're not singing karaoke. You're just conducting the room into singing along with it. It was the perfect song. Like, there was nothing. Yeah, there was no shame there.
No, all the shame. I'm sorry,
dude.
Anyone that was there, I'm sorry for my sultry.
Nobody even remembers that. Nope. No, it was amazing. But yeah, I think we called it at like 3.
Yeah. So, but again, great memories. A lot of new friends, a lot of new people, and that really, like, that Friday night is exactly why I take time away from my family, is to go and do that kind of things, to play back-to-back board games, to sit at a table, to do that kind of stuff was awesome. And then Saturday, just to kind of like speed up the rest of our day so we get to Sunday. Saturday we wake up. I am tired, but we're forging on. I think every day we are up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, which was my plan to be all along. Jerod was up at 5 no matter what. And
listen, I slept till like 7 on Saturday.
so Saturday we play MCP. We go down there. Trace is actually going to play in the tournament of MCP.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. What happened?
Somebody brought the wrong set of cards with him and had way too many restricted cards and cards that had nothing to do with the people that I brought with me. So I was like,
whoopsie doodle.
Well, we're not, talk to the TO. And I was like, look, this is the situation. I was like, I'm just going to drop. So I did, which was fine because it just let me come and hang out with you guys some more, which is really the goal for the whole weekend anyway. And I did the most important thing that I could have done in the game with Danny and Jerod and Jason, which is get Hawkeye killed.
Yeah. What is wrong with you? Yeah. So we go down to play and we play the Crisis, where we're playing
Dormammu encounter.
Dormammu. Yeah. The encounter. Yeah. And my team is Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, and Spider-Man.
Yep.
And Jerod, you're playing.
I brought Cable and Psylocke and X-23 and Honey Badger and Domino.
And so we start to play. Everything's going fine. Brian shows up from our local group. He needs a place to put his stuff. So before check-in, so I was like, hey, Trace, don't mess this up. Just play a turn. Everything was perfect when I left. I went and got Brian all checked in. He was there. Jake showed up. Got the young ones all situated into the event. I come back. Hawkeye's dead. And Jerod is almost dead and has like one shard.
Let's be clear. I was the one who started collecting shards. Jerod was like, Trace, bring Spider-Man. I was like, no, I am getting the shards. He can go back and forth and boop, 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 boop over and over because we have to close the portals.
Jerod just wanted to bash.
Well, that's what X-Force is supposed to do, but they did not do it very well. They just got bashed.
I think we were just bonked everybody.
I think we're like on turn 3, and I had 2 fighters left out of my 5-man roster. So
needless to say, Dormammu took over the natural world. He now owns everything, but it was still fun. Those are always extremely difficult if you don't bring a certain team to game it, which we try not to. So that was fun. Like I said, Brian and Jake were there. And then at this point, you'd won nothing, Jerod. You've come in 3rd in Liar's Dice and lost at everything
2nd in Dune Imperium, and then just gotten trounced at everything else I've played.
Yep, because even the night before, or 2 nights before, when you played the tuna match with Don and MCP, you got pretty trounced that night too.
Yeah, I got shellacked too. Yep.
And I will, just a side note, because we didn't talk about the night because of memory, teaching the game of MCP. So Trace and I sat there with Brian and Skylar and taught it, and just kind of, were observant to what was going on. Was probably one of my most enjoyable times with MCP. Like, just to see the cool interactions that happen against just heroes was just really, really fun. So thank both of them for being part of that. But then at that point, I will say at that point at the end of Dormammu, the late night, early mornings for 4 days in a row hit me. And I think I was drooling on myself. I was literally sleeping, standing up, but Trace is like, you want to play some Underworlds? I was like, yes. Like, so you and Danny continued to play MCP. So you re-racked and actually played a traditional game of MCP.
So I'm going to jump in. So at this point, like, I have literally won nothing. And, like, I'd like to consider myself a mature adult. We all know that isn't really true, but like, it actually like hit me. Like, it affected me that like I had just been losing like all week at everything. Like, to the point where I looked at everybody at the table and I was like I just gotta, like, I gotta step away. Like, I need to go get a drink. I gotta step away. I gotta catch some air. In that time, like, I went to check, like, see how Jimmy was doing, and playing Mess BG, the Middle Earth strategy battle game, in the tournament that he was playing in. Ran into Danny like while I was doing that. So like I had walked away. You guys were going to go do your thing. I guess Danny went to check on Jimmy, and then I ran into Danny in the fantasy hall. But like it's just I don't know. Like I felt like it was important to acknowledge that like losing all the time can suck, and it like can affect you. And I don't like it. But it is a thing.
I want you to remember this next time we play.
I was remembering it while we were playing Underworlds on Sunday, Trace.
Oh, little foreshadowing there. So
you guys go play Underworlds.
Yeah, so we play Underworlds. Tracy needed a tune up for his warband, and I'm always down to play. So we go back to the board game lounge, and sit down there, and it was really cool because because there was more Underworlds players there this time. Like we already mentioned, we saw Don and Matt playing the one night there, but other people came up to us. Kingfish in our
Kingfisher. Yep.
Yeah, Kingfisher came up. Oliver, thank you. Came up, said hello to us. And then, of course, Brian and Jake were there, so they came over and sat down awkwardly eating pizza, Brian. I can't describe that on video, or I'm sorry, on microphone. Radio. The next time that we're in person, please ask me about the Brian story. Boy, oh boy. So it was good. We got tuned up. Like I believe I beat Trace by 1 glory, which sure made him feel good for that game, which made me feel really nervous for Sunday. But it was great. And then how did your game go with Danny?
So I lost. But I had a lot of fun. I brought Magneto, Juggernaut, and Sabretooth Apex Predator against A-Force. So he had She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, and Angela. Valkyrie. Valkyrie. It was Valkyrie. Yeah. So, it got to there was a point where, a couple of die rolls, I think I could have made something happen. But Magneto's ability to just use 6 defense for 2 power against any attack is really good. So that helped a lot, but yeah. But it was a much more enjoyable experience than getting just shellacked by Dormammu or Necrons or demons.
Now, to be fair, there was a couple of rolls that just kind of fell the wrong way in our game.
I'm not discounting that, but they did fall the wrong way, and it led to a loss. So, but it was just a fun, like, dumb MCP game. There was a ton of terrain thrown. There were a ton of characters thrown. It was fun. I had a good time. So we finished up. We wrapped up. You guys were wrapping up Underworlds. I don't remember what we got into for the rest of Saturday night.
We went to dinner that night. That was
that's right. Yeah, we went to everybody. We went back to the English pub.
Yeah, Brian, Skyler, Bobby came in, fun. So we got to meet Bobby from the Madison crew.
What a gem Bobby is, man.
I like me some Bobby.
Bobby's a good guy.
And then we just kind of moseyed around and came back. And like I said, I was already extremely tired. That night we went back. We ended up talking with Jimmy and Jerod and hanging out down in the gaming lounge, but I don't even remember if I played anything that night. And I just remember at one point going, and my brain is done. And we were in bed at like 10:30.
Yeah, everybody went for Sunday that night.
So that's true. And that was the thing that we were also thinking about. Is I was specifically thinking about I needed to get through 5 games of Warhammer Underworlds in one day, and I was not going to be able to do that on another night of 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So
it was.
Oh, I know what else we did on Saturday. It was very important to me.
Oh, what?
We had to pack.
Yeah. Heard that 17 times on Saturday. We had
yeah, it is a testament to how fried my brain was from lack of sleep. I think I told everybody how important it was that we needed to pack.
We need to pack.
Like I think 17 times.
We need to go back to the room and pack for a little while and take stuff to the car. We got to take stuff to the car.
We got to pack.
We need to pack.
So guess what? Else we went and packed.
We did. We did go and pack. It was great because who did we see when we packed the car?
The rat.
Our friend, the rat.
We saw Skritter.
We did saw Skritter. He skrittered right along the wall.
So anyway, at 90 minutes into this podcast, that was really our Nova Open convention, like from Wednesday to Saturday, right?
Yep.
And to summarize, which could be done in about 30 seconds, for me, it fulfills a ton of great people, a ton of great games, no matter what it was. It was the first convention that I went to that I was signed up for stuff, but I didn't play in anything that I was signed up for. I just played whatever was kind of there in front of us with a ton of demos. And like by Saturday night, it was just perfection. Like,
yeah,
I thought that the layout was good. I thought going out to eat was good. Like everything for me was perfect. I was having a great time. We went back to the room and crashed. Guys, like anything to add to your first like couple days in Nova? Like, did it meet all expectations? Was it better, worse?
I think it was definitely better than last year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And I think it's because I think we all really kind of focused on doing what we wanted to do. I mean, involving each other in that, but like being vocal, being sure about what we wanted to do. Like Jason, the fact that you were like, no, like I'm living in the board game lounge. Like this is where I live. This is where you can find me. Like you were unapologetic about it. Like not in a bad way, but like you were just like, this is where I live. And like at the same token, at 2:30 in the morning, I'm like, guys, I'm done. I'm going to bed. I know that we're literally in the middle of a conversation and somebody probably just asked me a question, but like I got to go to sleep.
And like there was one point when I went to go call Jenny and I was like, I'm just going to sit up here and take a nap for a minute and then I'll come back down. And that's when I came down to Lorcana after we had convened. So I really enjoyed it. I thought that we, like you said, we did a good job of like vocalizing what we wanted to do and just being assertive about what each one of us wanted to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. And the board game lounge felt like the charity lounge had felt in years past, like just random tables with random convention goers.
At least closer. I don't think anything will replace the rooftop bar, but
no.
But I think it had more of the Nova Open feel this year than it did last year by a long margin.
Yeah.
Being in one venue, not having to go to two separate places, to one for AOS and then one for 40K and everything else, like vastly improved as far as venue and community and the feel of the convention this year. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. Cool.
So we'll go to bed. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with the Sunday hotness. And we're back. And we made it to Sunday in Nova, which we've already stated was a fantastic convention. We're riding high from all our friends and meeting new friends. But now we go into the meat and potatoes of why I go to Nova, and that's to participate in a Grand Clash. So we get up Sunday. Everything's set to go. I'm bringing the nemesis of all nemesis, Nemeso, in the Heffalump. So my thought going into kind of this Grand Clash is I only get to go to one a year.
Yep.
And a little history for our listeners is about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months ago, I asked a question in a couple of Discords because there was a lot of this talk about Heffalump being OP. And I was like, okay, if you could change one thing, or if there's one thing about Heffalump that is OP, what is it? And there really wasn't a good answer. Like, it was like their cards are just good, right? Or this or that.
Right.
So locally, I started playing them to see, like, okay, what do I need to know going into Nova? Like, if I want to dismantle them. And there was one problem, gentlemen. I fell in love with their play style.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
We knew that was going to happen, though.
Yes. So
it's Eyes of the Nine, but better.
Yeah, way better. So I played a lot of that. So that's what I took. And yes, a lot better, Trace. And I took him with Seismic Shock because I really enjoy the magic of it. So I thought there was really good synergies there. I think the naysayers would say that if Heffalump goes down, you don't really have much of a deck. That is true to a point, but I can still achieve my objective deck with the rest of the warband. I just don't have a lot of tools in my power deck, but whatever tools I do have, I'm going to get to because I can salvage.
Heck yeah.
So that was where my mind was going into Sunday. That's what I was bringing. Trace, where did you land going into Sunday?
I'm a dirty rat. I brought the new stinkiness. Leading up to Nova, in parallel to Jason's journey to perfect his Heffalump deck, I beat my head against that deck for weeks, and originally thought about bringing the Stabby Assassin Rats and the Skittershanks Claw Pack to try and take out Heffalump like as soon as possible. Not just thinking about Heffalump, but just thinking about the nature of a lot of the warbands in the meta right now that are very leader centric. Didn't really feel like painting them. I liked where I was going with that, and I may revisit that after, like once we start playing again in our local meetups. And then I tried out Ripa with Tooth and Claw, which is very good when you hit. If you don't hit and you're playing against a deck that does not require you to hit and allows just for positioning and stuff like that, it can get out of hand really quickly. So I leaned really heavy into something that did not require a lot of dice rolls. It required some, but not a lot. And that was the new Scabix play pack. They play very positional. I was playing more of the corruption style build, which I really enjoyed, just trying to corrupt territory and making things smelly for my opponent. Paired them with Void Curse Thralls because there was a lot of things in that deck that complemented and enhanced some of the lacking characteristics on the Scabic Plague Pack cards. Not being able to be pushed off of objectives with drive back is really important for them, especially with the Befoulers. There's also some other cool tech in there, like you can turn one into a Void Curse fighter and then give them an additional shield with some of the defense cards that are in there. Additional -1 damage cards. There's just a lot of cool little things in there that helps them to stay on the board longer, and they're not a very resilient warband to begin with. There's lots of movement shenanigans in that deck, which helps to get your positioning correct, to corrupt territory. Lots of fun stuff. So that's what I ended up taking. Nice. Jerod?
Yeah, so I ran through some paces leading up to Nova, trying to figure out what to take.
Buddy.
I tried a Void Curse Cunning Crew. That didn't really work out well for me. I tried a couple of variations of Crimson Court because I was trying to go with something that was familiar and kind of easy to play, and that didn't really work for me. And so I ultimately settled on, like, I guess my standby since Nova of last year. I mean, really since Gnarlwood released, and that's been the Sons of Elmorn with Fearsome Fortress. And I did that mostly because it's something that I'm very comfortable with. The decision trees are already mapped out in my brain for what to do, as far as like what board to put down, where I'm trying to put tokens, all of that stuff. There's a ton of stagger in Fearsome Fortress that I really like for Velmorn because it helps to proc those crits to get the inspiration. And then I'm not gonna lie, like there was a little part of me that was curious to see just how well I could do with what a lot of people consider to be an underrated warband. So there was a small part of that in there. And I did have a soft goal of being the top ranked Velmorn player at Nova, not knowing how many Velmorn players there were going to be. I was kind of joking in assuming that there were not going to be any other Velmorn players when I made that soft goal. But it turned out to work out okay for me. I mean, not as well as other people's choices on this podcast, but it worked out all right. Not the first 2 rounds though.
Yeah, right. So some things some things that I just want to bring up before we get into kind of like our experiences in the rounds. I want to give a huge shout out to our TO Teresa for doing it again. And from a player base standpoint, we ended up with 31 players. We had 32 signed up. There were a couple of drops, and the reason we got to 31 is because of the wait list. So I think that just right out the gate, the fact we're at 31 players, yeah, it sucks that someone took a bye, and sorry, Brian, you were that person. It sucks that you traveled to take a bye, but to only have one vacant seat at the start of a tournament for any tournament is just huge.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The fact that last year, Teresa kind of did it. So RTO, she does not play Underworlds. Like she does it just so we have someone that runs the tournament. She has no real deep understanding of the game, just a basic understanding of the game. And she volunteered to do it last year, which we had 11? Did we have 11 last year?
We had 11 last year. Yep.
Yeah. And now it's grown 3 times as much. Right. And she does it again. But with that, there were some things that came up that I would like to discuss again, even before we get into just how the tournament went. One, an FAQ dropped for the second year in a row the weekend of Nova. So on Saturday, there was an FAQ that came out, and I think everyone agrees that an FAQ the day before an event probably should not be used.
Yep.
But it does suck that 2 years in a row we got this nice FAQ and then played a Grand Clash that could not use it.
Right.
She had already predetermined that the Paths of Prophecy or the Mathematician's Revenge was not allowed, but the Plague Pack was.
Yep.
Which great. But in other rulings, there was a lot of rules in the previous FAQ that were beta, and some other players did message the TO before the tournament and said, "Hey, our beta rules in effect." And her ruling was no, they're like, we are not playing with any beta rules. So that means Crushes does not have the wall counter beta rule. Gnarl Spirit Pact does not have the beast token beta rule. And there's some other ones that I'm forgetting, but I don't know if they were actually at the tournament. So,
yeah, I think those were the 2 big ones.
I think the Gits was like 4 glory or something like that.
Yeah, but there weren't any Gits.
There wasn't any Gits. So the beta rules were not in effect. Now, this was a little controversial in the fact that no one asked. It wasn't really widely known going into the tournament. And more importantly, last year we played with the beta rules. So I just assumed that they would be in effect, but shame on me for not asking. So that kind of defined round 1, or the end of round 1 was like, hey, there was these rulings and people were having responses to that.
There were definitely some feelings.
Yes, some feelings.
And that's okay.
That is okay. But and then some other things came up during the event, so that we haven't had to deal with, at least, I mean, once again, we go to one major tournament a year, but back in the day pre-COVID, there was defined rulings from Games Workshop on what happened if these things happened in their player pack. And to my knowledge, there is no player pack other than the documents for the format. So what happens if a player takes a buy?
Yeah, how do you score that?
How do you score it?
That's not defined right now.
It used to be defined.
It did used to be defined. It used to be they got, what, a glory differential of 15?
15, yes.
Yep. So they got 2 wins for tournament points and a glory diff of 15. Plus 15.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that
was it 14? 2 7.
It was 15.
It was 15. Flat 15.
I think now, personally, it should be 14 is what I would push, like 7 and 7.
Sure.
The other thing, too, is like what happens if someone concedes a round. So this does not happen a lot in any other game, but the fact that we play best of 3, there may come a point where you need to get to game 3. Now, the round limits were moved to 105 minutes, which is like an hour and 45 minutes, right?
Yep.
So from 90. But if you're getting blown out in game 1, you may want to concede, because the only way you will be able to come back and win is if you take game 2 and 3, and you don't want to be hard pressed. So we had people, and Tracy, you had one that conceded a round. Mm-hmm. And we have no defined thing of what to do. So any thoughts on what we should do? I know what we did, and I know what happened in the tournament, but like now that we know is going to happen, what are your thoughts on if somebody wants to concede a round?
I think there needs to be, like, it's just a straight loss. Like, the winner gets X number of glory, the loser gets X number of glory. That's how you define it.
Yeah.
Just for cleanliness of, glory differential and all this other stuff. Like, it gives you an option, like, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I forgot where I saw this read, but it was in our Discord somewhere, but somebody was talking about like just flat values of, like, if you concede a round, you take 0 glory and your opponent takes 7.
Yep. And it's capped.
At that. So, like, if that's a plus 7 glory diff for you, and then you play your next round. If you win your next round, then you're done. But it does allow for that third game to be played if need be. So I think that's probably the cleanest way to handle it. But right now that's not defined in any way. Right now it's very messy.
Yeah.
Because the way we're supposed to be playing is we're supposed to play all the way through the game. Right. You're supposed to either take the official pass action or just draw cards or do whatever if you don't feel like you're going to win. That is typically the way that we have handled that in the past. I don't necessarily hate the idea of a concession, just for, expediting the round.
Yep.
But it does need some defined rules, I think. And that is the cleanest way, in my opinion, to handle it.
Jerod, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think whatever the ruling is for a buy, like, that's the kind of win that you should get for a concession.
I would agree with that.
And I think I think the point of it is what you were talking about, Jason, is it's okay, like, we're going to call this game. You get 7 points. I get 0 because I want to get to game 2. Try to squeeze a win out of that to force you into a game 3. And that's going to be the only way to have time to do that and have reasonable round times at the same time. And it can go the other way too, right? So let's say I win game 1 and then I start, like, I know that I'm going to get blown out in game 2. Like, I can just concede and then we hit the roll off for game 3. And now we both get to play, like, the full experience for this battle in a best of 3.
I mean, something would be better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that in the event that we are playing in with 31 players and 5 rounds, there theoretically could have been a tie for top spot, and glory differential mattered. And the 7 just doesn't, like, if I'm beating some, like, my glory differential was much higher than 7.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, and I believe it was,
I think it was
Akenborn or Cryos said it might have been Lithium.
I think it was Liathanum. And so I think it's one of the European communities. He was saying that what they do is you don't score glory differential. Your glory differential is capped at 7 per game. So like if I score 15 glory and you only score 3,
still capped
then
at 7.
I get a win. You get 0 points. I get 7. So like you count the differential and then you cap it at 7. So like if the differential is less, then you score it at what it was. So Trace, I get 14, you get 15. Well, I would put 0 glory in, you would put 1 glory in. So like there's a ceiling to the glory differential, but the floor is like still 0. So there's still room for true ties. I think what that does is it squashes it's going to squash the secondary, like the tiebreaker.
Yes.
And make that a lot tighter, which could be good because then it means that if the pairings are based off of those secondaries, then the pairings get a lot tighter. As opposed to like, the top always fighting the top and the bottom always fighting the bottom, or whatever the case is. Just depending, because I don't remember how BCP does the pairings anymore. But I think
it's just random Swiss.
It's just random right now. Random Swiss after the first. Yeah. So I think that would be, kind of one way to handle it. And I don't remember which community he said was doing. I can't remember if he said it was the Spanish community or the Italian community.
It's the Italian community. But I think that it is, I'm fine if that's what again, a ruling is better than no ruling, right?
Yes.
But I don't think you can do one without the other. I think that if you don't cap the glory diff, then taking a bye can really ruin your chances, or you will see gamesmanship later on with the concessions. Yeah. Like someone, let's say we're playing in a tournament and Trace is going to win, but his glory diff is like not the greatest, and I'm playing the person that he's up against, I can just be like, oh, I'm going to concede and like cap his glory diff and then, give my friend a better chance of winning. So I think that you have to have both, or that if someone is going to concede, you just add 7 to your glory, and you make the glory differentials even larger. But I think the easiest way is to condense, and then no matter what you do, you just get +7. It also would encourage people to concede then. So
right. Yeah. And I think without any of those things, the way that Teresa ran the bye is that she averaged the glory diff for the round. And I think that's pretty fair because you get the bye, you get a win, but you're stuck in the middle of the winner pack.
Yes.
Right? Like it doesn't shoot you to the top. You didn't play a real game. I mean, it's unfortunate, right? Like I got the bye last year and it elevated me probably to a higher position than I would have necessarily gotten if I had played all 4 games. But
yeah,
I mean, it's still random, right? Like the game is random, the pairings are random, the bye is random. So like,
and then the other kind of controversial thing that we don't have guidelines on for running a tournament is when the games do go to time.
Yeah. So what do you do at time? Dice down.
Yeah. Time. In the past, in Nova 1, Nova 2, in the Grand Clashes that I played in, time was time, dice down. It doesn't matter where you are. That was the glory that counted.
Yep.
So it could be activation 3 of turn 2, dice down. Doesn't feel really good if you have an end phase scoring warband. Or it could have been, turn 1, 4 activations for each player, dice down. That's so and there was some instances of this through the tournament. Like we had a game that played through half of lunch. We had a game that had to be hard dice down. at like with 10 additional minutes, and we had a game hard dice down with like 12 extra minutes. And then I also saw 2 people that ran overtime, were in their third game, and just said, we're not going to count the third game. We're just going to go 1-1.
Yeah.
Right. And that happened a couple times in the tournament.
Yeah. There were a lot of pairings where they went 1-1 and they looked at the amount of time left in the round, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And they're like, we're not going to finish game 3. So it was a mutual agreement. Like, we'll call this a draw. We'll take the draw points and move on with our lives.
But there were definitely some feel bads out there when there had to be the ruling of like, this is what the score is. So do we need a tournament standard of what happens? Now, I think an hour and 45 is actually a pretty good round time.
I think so.
2 hours is fine. Like, you could bump it to 2 hours, but then your day goes later. Or let's just say we move it to 2 hours. Like, that's the standard round. It does mean that there probably is a lot of downtime for a lot of people, but that's not a terrible thing.
Right.
But what I would say, if I was TO Jason, I would make a call with 35 minutes left in the round. So we'll just say at 90 minutes.
Sure.
Or 85 minutes into the round. If you are not finishing game 2 and within the next 5 minutes, like, you can decide to play on and go to game 3, but when dice are down. If the ruling comes to me and say, hey, we don't have enough time, after 30 minutes left in the round, I would say no game could start.
Yeah.
So you would leave it to the players, like, hey, you can decide to do this if you really think that it's going to matter and you can get a game in within 20 minutes. Go ahead. But when dice are down, dice are down. Like,
and the score is what the score is.
Is what the score is.
You don't get to score your end phase.
Nope. Wherever point you're at when dice are down, dice are down. But if you're asking for a TO to make a rule, like, hey, like, you know, like you and I are playing, Jerod, and we need a game 3, but we're only in turn 2 of game 2.
Right.
And we finish our game and there's 20 minutes left in the round, and you like, hey, we're just going to tie 2-2 or tie 1-1. And I'm like, no, I want to play another game. So you say, judge, you raise your hand, judge. Right. Judge comes over. Is there 30 minutes left in the round? No, then game's done.
Yeah. I mean, you've talked about this, but I mean, maybe that's something that we draft. We community, like, as a community of Warhammer Underworlds players, we create a living tournament guideline document.
Yeah. And not an FAQ, but just a tournament scoring document.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We're not making any rulings on card interactions, fighter interactions. Just these are our firm recommendations as a community for how scoring should be handled in a tournament setting, how timing should be handled in a tournament setting. And then if tournaments don't follow it, they at least have the questions that they need to answer going into a tournament. Like, if they don't like the answers that the community comes up with, then they need to have their own answers, and they can communicate those answers to their players well in advance of the tournament. So a TO can decide how they want to run a bye, how they want to handle dice down, how they want to handle a tie, how they want to handle concessions. But at least they know that these are the things that they need to communicate to their players in advance of the tournament, so that there aren't questions and arguments happening at the tournament.
I agree.
So let's do it.
So
we'll host it, battle-mallet.com/TO guidelines, coming soon to a URL near you.
Good. I think
probably not that URL, but we'll get something started.
But it's really just like, a couple things that have to be, like, FAQs FAQs within 2 weeks of event should not be in use, right? Like,
right. Yeah. All of those questions.
Yeah. All right, cool. So round 1. Trace, how did your round 1 go?
So round 1, I ended up playing Oliver, from our Discord chat. He played Headsman's Curse, and he was our first example of the situation we were talking about. He was like, I just want to concede this first round and let's get on to the next round. I totally got why he wanted to do that. So we did that, and we got on to game 2, which I ended up winning my second round as well. But it was a great game. Like, he was a great opponent. The dice just came out hot in the first round. I managed to get the wielder of the blade down in both games, which was big. Yeah, so it was a quick one. But
was there anything that surprised you playing Void Curse Rats that you were like, that's really cool, or that really synergized well?
The additional defense dice on the shielded fighter was really good.
Yeah, that's solid.
And then Skritter did some nice shenanigans, just getting onto objectives and doing what he does, just lurking around in the background, because not a lot of folks really will pay attention to him unless you actually move him in a meaningful way.
You don't happen to remember what his Nemesis deck was, do you?
He was playing what's the Daring Delvers? He was playing Delvers with Headsman Curse. Yeah.
Nice.
Was he heavily into exploration, or just using it for the ping damage?
A little bit of the ping damage, and then the just trying to get into my territory. I think his thought was just being aggressive with them and trying to get into my territory with them. He played very well. He had some, unfortunate dice rolls. He actually played the Bearer of the Block in an interesting way, where he put the upgrade on that didn't allow you to move on there, and just like lurched him into my back lines. So he was hanging out with, the secondary priest rat. I forget his name.
Itchit.
He was hanging out with Itchit. So I couldn't like move away. I couldn't do all that fun stuff. So he just got kind of started trying to wail. And that was where the double defense characteristic came in, and additional supports and stuff, because he was surrounded, but he wouldn't let my fighters move. So I had to kind of just sit there and try and chip away at him. Poxlix tanked a lot of damage in that second game.
Nice.
So yeah, it was interesting. It was a good game. And then, took the second game.
Oh, we're not there yet.
No. Took the second game in my first match. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, but he was a great opponent. He, he had a lot of fun. He expressed a lot of gratitude for, being patient with him and just trying to he's coming back to the game after a while of being away from it, former Magic player, a lot of stuff like that. So I was happy to play with him in the first round. And I would love to get a game with him again at some point.
Awesome.
Nice.
So Jerod, you're setting out on this quest to be the greatest Sons of Valmorn player ever.
Yep.
How does round 1 go?
Horrible. So I sit down across the table from Craig Vieira, who is playing the Gnarl Spirit pack with Tooth and Claw. And round 1 goes about how everyone would expect the classic Gnarlwood rivalry pairing to go. I am tabled by the third activation of action phase 2. And so he's ready to just re-rack. And I, before he starts shuffling his cards up, I say, okay, in a tournament setting, we've got time. You should walk through the rest of your 4 activations. I'm going to take the official pass action. I have 1 glory at this point. I think I have killed 1. No, I haven't even killed a fighter. I've charged. I scored bold sortie probably, and that's it. So he ends up taking it 13-1. And then we get into game 2. Things are really tight. I'm doing a little better. as far as playing the counterpunch game, which is what Valmorn Fortress really wants to play. Get some good attacks, end up taking out 2 of his fighters. We tally up the final score, and it is 14-13 him. So I lose game 2 by 1. It was tight. It was close. I thought I was going to be able to push him to game 3, or at least pull the draw out, right, if we weren't going to have time to go into game 3. But it gave us time to just chat and hang out afterwards. So round 1 loss for the J-Man and for the Sons of Valmorn. So not looking too good on the top Valmorn player right now.
On game 2, who placed first board?
So game 1, he won the roll off. So game 2, I got to choose.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that'll be a theme, actually.
Is it a theme?
It is a theme.
So what did you offset? You longboard? Like, how did you?
Yeah. So like I offset him a little bit to try to funnel. I can't offset too much, right? Because I want feature tokens within 1 hex of no one's territory.
Yeah.
And particularly for Valmorn, because they have objectives where things are not in their territory. I would love to have 2 objectives in no one's territory, but if I can get an objective and a feature token in no one's territory, then I'm not pushing too far, but I'm also not stuck in my own territory.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good. So you're off to a great start.
A great start.
But
how about you?
But it's a little bit of a moral victory that you're playing non-nerf
beta
Gnarl Spear pack into Sons of Valmorn, and you only lost by 1.
Yeah. In game 1, I only lost by 12.
Well,
the other game,
dice are going to dice. So
dice are going to dice. Yeah.
So I sit down and I have the pleasure of playing George or Kairos. It's names. Kairos.
Path to Glory.
Path to Glory. And he is playing Void Cursed Skabbix Plague Pack. So leading up to Nova, I had done really well. The deck had gone through a couple of refinements, but there were a couple of warbands that gave me a hard time. Domatan is really good. Jerod Sons of Valmorn, because Jerod knows how to play Sons of Valmorn, which we'll get to in my round 2. And then Plague Pack. And I knew after playing Trace, and I also kind of knew when I was putting together my Void Cursed Plague Pack deck, I'm like, ooh, this could go really bad for Valmorn. And it actually, that Void Curse build, not of Plague Pack in particular, but just Void Curse, made me keep 9 Fates in my deck as an objective. So for anyone that wants to see, our decks are posted on the library. They're all out there. You'll notice that I have 22 cards in my deck.
You're a beast.
But I also kept 9 Fates, which there is a much easier score where Valmorn can hold, or Valmorn, oh my goodness, where Heffalump can hold an objective and score a single glory over the 2 for 9 Fates, but I didn't want him on an objective because he could get Void Cursed.
Yeah.
So we sit down, we shake hands, we get everything all set up. Believe it or not, leading up to the Nova, I was jazzed, right? I'm oh, I gotta. When we sat down, all that just went away, and I was just happy to be there. I think we had such a great event that I was just okay, I'm ready to go. And George just mops the floor with me.
Nice.
So he comes in, I knew game 1. So my opening hand was 9 Fates and oh my goodness, the one where I have to hold all the objectives in my Claim the Prize, I think it's called.
Claim the Prize, yeah.
And then I had another end score too. And my thought was the board positioning from the far as objectives went, I had 2 on my side, 1 was in no man's and the other 2 was in his. And I was if I can score these turn 1, and I had the tools in my power hand, or so I thought, to do it. And I'm if I can score these, that might be game over. I might get, 6 glory, plus I was hoping to get a kill. So that could be 7 glory round 1. I'm going to let it ride.
That's spicy.
But he elected to have me go first. So this is what playing an experienced player,
Yeah.
like he knows that he's going to get a chance to counter that objective, holding of objectives at some point. And he comes in and they get a lot of dice in that build, and he just bops and bops. He at one point moved across, then back across the line, and then across again. So he ended up by getting like 2 or 3 attacks with their big fighter on 3 dice. I am tabled after the second round. I think the game ended up by being 8-4, so it was kind of close, but I knew it was out of hand that game 1.
Yeah.
But more importantly, he got to settle down because he was on an 11. Okay,
right.
He was like there. Here's Heffalum, like the big bad right away. He knows he's got to go through that warband, and he was just at an 11. So I think by him taking game 1, he kind of calmed down, and we enjoyed it a little bit more after that in game 2. Game 2, he blew me out. It was something like 19-3, and it kind of went the same way. Like I thought I had good positioning, and he just came in and he scything attacked and killed 2. He void cursed another fighter, which meant that I could not attack at all in round 3 until he killed me. So he played it really, really well. He had a great plan, and I just the cards didn't come out like I wanted to in game 1. In game 2, I just couldn't do anything. And like he definitely outcritted me for certain, but his plan was there, and I think I only killed 1 fighter like the whole 2 games. So when you're playing play pack, that's not what you want to do at all. And I'm pretty sure that I took his Void Curse fighter to like 1 health right out the gate in game 2 too, and it just didn't go. So hey, I'm down 0-2. I have a terrible glory differential, but now I'm solid. Now I'm here. I'm just having fun.
Yeah, and took that round 1 loss.
Yeah, so round 2, I go into Eugene, which he is playing Sons of Elmorn. So now everything is riding on me to make sure that this person I know can get the best Sons of Elmorn player in the tournament. And this is where I started to realize you said something after the tournament, and that Pandemonium is a super big gatekeeper warband.
Yeah.
It really resonated with me because my next 2 opponents were newly returned to the game. And it's also why I asked how your Sons of Elmorn, what way the board were positioned and all of that stuff. Because against this Sons of Elmorn build, I won this game in board deployment, objective deployment.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where this warband can be a little bit of a gatekeeper. So the scores were not even close. I made up all my glory differential, but this is what I learned. So I deployed, because I play you so much, I deployed Heffalump in a more aggressive position than I normally would.
Right.
But all I did was count 4 spaces back from that center objective that I placed.
Yeah.
I got to place the first objective. He wide set up me, and I had 3 objectives. I put it right dead center.
Yep.
Then I had a board where there was a starting hex 4 away. He put his additional hex within 4. And then I just put the other 2 in the back of the board because his 2 objective placements were on his own board.
Yeah.
Right? So then I had second last row of my board. And it really, the first game went like this: is I'm going to attack. I'm going to attack. I'm going to attack. Like that's all I like. Once I got my figures onto my objectives that I needed on my side of the board, I just rolled magic dice all game. So the point when we got to game 2, like we had this kind of like conversation, and he was asking for, certain things. And I'm like, listen, this game, like playing this matchup and what you're trying to do is 1 in deployment. I let him pick board. Like I put down like an objective. He put down his objective. And then I was like, just stop. And I actually moved my 2 objectives up to row 3, which was a missed deployment, but at least then there was some damn interaction in the game.
Right.
Like once these were pushed up, he actually had charge points where he could reach my fighters. And I did that just to show him, like, listen, like, if I do exactly what we do last game, like, the same result is going to be there because I'm just going to shoot you off the board.
Yeah.
So there was a little more interaction in that game. I think it was a good learning moment, and I wish that I had a better way of describing board state and how to place objectives. But for those new players that are out there, the second level of this game over the deck and the rules interactions is the placing of boards and objectives. And remember what your goal is for the deck that you built. If you want to interact with the other person, or you need to make charges or moves onto objective tokens, placing that first objective, your whatever one, whether it's the first one on the board or the second one on the board, you want to zone out where your opponent can place an objective so you can achieve your plan. If you're just placing to where you want the objective to be for you, you may be playing right into my plan.
Yeah.
And that'll come into play later on when I get to round 3 and round 4. But this game, it was fun for me. It was great to play a new player. I sure it wasn't as ton of fun for him because it really was just a lot of casting. So
yeah,
Trace, round 2 to you.
Well, since you played so well in round 1, I got George. So
we had a rat off.
And it was nuts. That game was nuts because we're both playing Void Curse Thralls and Skaven, and there's just movement everywhere. Our builds are very different. I was playing more of the Corruption style build, and he was playing more Void Cursed heavy, trying to Void Curse everybody, which comes into play in game 2 because everybody ends up getting Void Cursed, and the big 4 glory score comes out at the end, and
oof.
Yeah, that was fun. But they were good games. We enjoyed it. You know, lots of banter back and forth. Just, you know, his dice were a little hotter than mine. He had some really good sneaky plays with the 2 move as reaction cards attached to some fighters, so it allowed him to position very well. It's not those interactions with those cards are they don't feel the best because a lot of the fighters in our warbands are range 2, so you're not adjacent to a fighter. So you can like skirt away from things in the middle of a charge and stuff like that. It's not great. So round 1, he won. I can't remember the scores because I can't get into BCP to look at it, but it was something like 11 to like 8 or something like that. And then round 2, he just blows me out of the water. It's like 6 to 20 or something like that. But they were good games. So that was my first drop. The rat off was fun. But you could tell he had played a lot more with those cards than I had, which definitely showed. And then he had a very, like you said, Jason, he definitely had a plan for how he wanted to play that warband. So just the more reps and probably a better plan than my plan definitely came into play. So
the Void Curse card, I thought, because he had shown me that after the end of round 1, you know, we were just sitting there, we had time, and that was a deliberate choice because he knew he couldn't, because he thought like, everyone thinks you're going to take the corrupt 3 territories, right? Like it's pretty solid score. But he shared that like I'm taking this because I can score these other ones, but if I don't score those because I'm playing against another Void Cursed, I'm probably going to score this, and it's probably what's going to push me out over the edge. So it was a great thought, very deliberately designed. I am sad that you guys had to go in the mirror match because I've been there, man. The mirror match at a large tournament sucks. So
yeah, it was fun. I mean, we had fun. Like, I enjoyed playing with him. He had definitely calmed down a little after the first round and gotten a win under his belt. But it was a lot of fun. Like, we just had good dialogue back and forth, just trying to make sure that all of our interactions were right because everything was corrupted. Like, whose corrupted territory is it? Is it my corrupted territory, your corrupted territory, so on and so forth. So, but yeah, it was a quick one. Like, we got it over pretty quick. And I guess we'll just move it on to Jerod and see what his second game was.
So, game 2, I play against Charles Waite, who is playing Dreepers, Wraith Creepers, and let me tell you, in the death on death matchup, this might be my least favorite for Velmorn, especially with Fearsome Fortress, because all of my stuff procs off of you being adjacent to me after your activation or after a move action, and they're all range 2. So,
well, not all.
That stinks. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. The ones that matter. The ones that matter are range 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, he played great. He did a great job positioning, getting his fighters inspired. He actually thought that he could only inspire one fighter per activation because he read it when it says, before your activation, he thought the your meant the fighter and not the players. Mm-hmm. And so, like, there was a case where, like, he inspired 3 fighters prior to an activation because they were all within 2 hexes of one of my fighters. But anyway, so game 1, he ends up taking it 8-15. Like, I just can't get things to fire. Obviously, it goes better than game 1 against Snarl Spirit for me. Like, I've killed some fighters, I have scored some objectives, but he just ends up shutting me down. And then game 2, we go into it. So game 1, he won the roll off. He got to, do the setup. Game 2, like, I get to make that choice. I try to, narrow the gap again, try to force feed him into me so that he can't just do anything. He's running Toxic Terrorist, by the way. And we get into the end phase, and for round 2, and my objective deck failed me in that if like 3 cards had been in a different order, then we would have tied and I would have been on an objective token. So I would have won game 2. But instead, I lose game 2, 12-13. So yet again, another 1 point loss for the Sons of Velmorn. So here I am, 0-2, trying to get the highest ranked Velmorn at Nova. And I think at this point I am tied because Mr. Eugene is also 0-2.
More importantly, have you won anything at all in the weekend?
No, nothing. No. So this is now 9 losses in a row for me, if we count individual games within a match as losses. So I'm feeling real good about myself right now, Jason. Real good.
So you're taking all that confidence into round 3. How does round 3 go for you?
So round 3, I get paired with Tom, I believe Schutz is his name. He was playing Myari's Purifiers, and he was relatively new to the game. Had only really been playing for a couple of months. Myari's Purifiers with Fearsome Fortress. And then, like Eugene did for you, I think the game was won and lost at objective and board placement. He's playing Fearsome Fortress, but he's not putting his tokens within 1 hex of no one's territory other than his like free fortress token. And so, things just don't hit the way that they need to hit for Myari. There were a couple of die rolls that didn't go his way. But so in round 3, I take game 1, 18-5, and then game 2, 15-8. So things are starting to fire.
You won a game. You won a game.
I did. I won 2 games. And then I look at the pairings, and much to my chagrin, Mr. Naravlansky, the other Sons of Velmorn player, got the bye this round. So we're both sitting at 1 and 2, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
So was there any like interactions in that game that I understand he's a newer player, maybe not fully vetted on deployment type stuff, but was there anything fun that happened? Did you like inspire somebody, crit somebody? Did the bastard son do anything?
Yeah, so there was I got a pretty solid scything attack with the Thane, with the fourth and last. Mr. Glaive himself, a pretty clever double stagger, plus the reroll upgrade. So I had every opportunity, and it took me 3 plus 2 rerolls. That's 5 dice, and then 2 plus 2 rerolls. So that's now 9 dice, plus the ploy to make the attack because those 4 dice all failed, and then 2 with 2 more rerolls. So 13 dice to take out 2 elves in that round.
Nice.
Yeah. So stagger tech in that case happened to work out for me. Yeah.
And more importantly, you're in the W column and still tied for best of Sons of Elmore.
Still tied for best Velmorn. Yep.
All right, Trace. Round 3. What do you got? You're 1-1 going into 3.
Yep. Ended up playing my first Ephelem of the day. And I don't remember the gentleman's last name, but his first name was Tom as well. Found out that he was going to go to a barbecue after this game, and I wish I had gone with him.
Yeah, after seeing the pictures of that on the Discord, Tom, thanks a lot.
Yeah. So he was a wonderful opponent. We ended up splitting that match. Round 1 went to me pretty handily. I was able to get into the changers really early and get rid of some of the inspired ones, which helped to slow down kind of their momentum. He is ironically playing your deck, Jason. So I was
literally his deck from our library.
Yes.
Well, which means
with like one or two tweaks maybe.
Yeah.
So I was very familiar with what was happening, having beaten my head against it for several weeks prior. So I was like, "Oh no, we're not gonna get in here." And it was funny. That game in particular was very interesting to me to see how a different pilot plays that deck and who they inspire first and where they position those fighters. It was vastly different than how you do it.
Interesting.
He inspired like Stairfish first and then put some other people like a little bit further back. It was just interesting just to see how a different person's brain handles the same deck in the same warband. So the rats kind of fired a little bit in that game. I was able to get the changers off, corrupt 3 territories, had some big scores. It was a pretty big glory differential at the end of the first round. And then we get to round 2. He gets to choose board placement. And the game is much closer, but it ends up going to him. But we both decide that we're probably not going to have time to go to a round 3 and have it be a meaningful game. And so we decided to just kind of take it for what it was and do a draw. And that was the first experience with that. But it was a good game. Like we had a really good time. Like we didn't feel like we were playing slow. It was just, there was a lot of decision points to be made and there's a lot of movement and, changers coming back and all that fun stuff. So there's lots of things to manipulate the board state with those 2 war bands. And so it just takes a little bit more time.
Yeah. Pandemonium Hephalem is like, there's a lot of decision points, like just the change sequence itself. It is interesting to see that he spawned or inspired different fighters. But listen, Tom, round 1, always the Maw. Always inspire the Maw.
He's got so many teeth.
He can do, especially with seismic shock, he can do some really good lifting on casting spells. That 5 move is really what you want. So anyway, but I'm glad to hear that it went well for both of you. Glad to see that you got to see somebody play the deck a little bit differently. overall, how do you feel about dice? Like, you're halfway through the tournament. Like, one of the things that you mentioned is you took Void Curse, so you didn't have as much reliance on dice, which is a little different in your Underworlds play. Like, is it working out?
It was fine. Like, I had some misses, I had some hits. Like, I've always traditionally tried to play a more aggro warband in this game. It's just kind of where my brain is. But I also logically know that if I'm playing in a big tournament like this, just weighing all of my hopes and dreams on frickin' D6s is not a recipe for success for me. It is a recipe for success for many people. It is not for me. So I had some misses. I had some crits. I had some good crit diffs. Like, it is what it is. Like, but I think not focusing on being as dice dependent and letting my tactical brain come through was a good decision for me.
Wasn't this the game where like the Worthless was right in midfield and you double crit?
No.
Out of it?
Nope.
No, this wasn't.
That's way later.
Oh, is that later? Okay.
That's
all right. Cool.
Yeah. That's round 5.
So round 3, for me, I play Jason, Stephen, probably Steven, but I got a lot of Stephens in my world. So, but Steven, he is playing, if I remember correctly, crushes, pre-beta crushes. So let me just go through how this is, right? So we sit down. I'm like, oh, crushes. I played crushes last year. At this point, like, I've heard that the beta rule for Gnarl Spear Pack isn't being played, but in my mind, I see crushes and I'm like, okay, like, he has to spend the 2 wall counters to inspire because I played them last year. I can't remember who won the roll off. I think I won the roll off. Either way, I got to pick deployment as far as where we're going. And playing crushes once or twice, hallway. We went hallway.
Yep.
So hallway, and his board choice was not the greatest, where it really only gave him 1 fighter to get remotely close to my guys. And I knew they had a couple of pushes, and I also knew that he probably wanted to stand on a couple of objectives. So I conveniently placed those objectives where I could get to them if I needed to. And I also drew a hand, like, I had lashing tendril. I had a lot of cards. I had Will of the Architect turn 1, where I could kind of bounce back and forth. But placing hallway meant that there was really only 1 fighter that was even in jeopardy if he got a push, and that would have been Kindlefinger, who was on guard and reducing damage by 1, which may not be a good thing going up against damage 3 fighters. But he comes across, and long story short, like, I basically get to plink him as he's coming across turn 1. But then again, I still don't realize that we're not playing non-beta rules. So at the end of turn 1, I think I scored like 3 or 4 glory. I've got a couple damage on some fighters. But I'm like, I'm going to play Lashing Tendril and suck.
I hate that card.
Crusha into a damage hex, a lethal hex. And then I'm like all set up like for turn 2. And he goes, well, just so you know, we're not playing the beta rule. And I was like, oh, that's what I want. Crusha standing next to 2 fighters in non-beta rule. Never mind. And he was very gracious and allowed me to not play that card and put Crusha back 3 hexes away. So now he's got to move. And then I think you know how the rest of the game goes. Like, he's just move. He never really gets close to me. There is at one point I kill Art Skull by like plink damage and dragging him into a lethal. Like, he tries to like skirt around the lethal and get to the outside to get some attacks in. I attack him. I do 3 damage on a crit. I pull him into a lethal, and then I plink damage him, and next thing you know, he's got one fighter remaining. The second game, he obviously gets board layout, but it's more of the same. And then this is where my magic flick tech comes in. So I managed
so
to get
gross.
oh my goodness, I can't even remember the name of the card, but it gives me an action to flick. So on a focus, I get to either push or stagger a fighter, and the best part is it's 6 hexes away. So I do that once or twice, and next thing you know, I've bought myself so much time that my I've just scored, and that's the way that game goes. Is I just play area denial. It's
Quintox Unseen Hand. Yep,
which is my favorite card in my deck. So it didn't go well for him at all, because he really just could not get to me. But if he could have done some serious damage.
Yeah,
I think maybe he only attacked like 3 or 4 times in game 2, and his dice just were not doing well either. So
yeah.
So that was my round 3. That moves us into round 4. So now I'm 2-1. Jerod, you're 1-2.
1-2.
And Trace is on his way to achieving perfection at 1-1-1. We go into round 4, and I sit down at the table, and I just cannot wait to get this game on, because I'm playing Don. Don played the first round of last year. I was playing Crushes. He was playing a Slaanesh Dread Pageant. I had all the single def crits, kind of ruined his day game 1. Now we're in game 4. I'm on the up and up. He was, I think at this point, he was 2-1 as well.
Yeah.
And he's playing Thundrix with Fearsome Fortress, and I'm actually worried. Like, when we sit down, I'm like, oh, Thundrix, like, they can put out some damage. They can control objectives. If he's playing the way that I think he's playing, he wants to hold objectives, which means I have to put Hefflem at risk. And again, I just want to point out how Hefflem is a gatekeeper warband, because I think if Don was a little more, he had never played against Hefflem other than one time against Matt, where they're just playing their normal pickup games. So he wasn't really like, he did not know the intricacies of what I was trying to do. So game 1, I won the roll off. I choose deployment, so he puts down first. We offset, do the same thing. Like, I kind of bury in the back of the board, but again, knowing that he's playing Fearsome Fortress, I deploy Hefflem where I don't have to move him, and he's within 4 of the center, and he's just supported by all the other changers. He deploys way back. Like, he is not even close to midboard. He's got to move up. And in this game, I will tell you that I miscast. I took a damage, and Balloon Boy came across twice. Not once, but twice, and could have taken him out, because I was so close to midboard to make sure that I could control midboard, and he missed both times. And that was the game. Had he killed him, it would have been a completely different game. But
I feel you, Don. I understand your pain.
Yeah,
intimately.
And yeah, he had it. I want to say it was turn one, like activation 3 or 4, that he came across and just tried to blop him and missed. And then he went back, he fell back, he used like where they can move again. He falls back onto objective in the center. And because I play against a lot of Fearsome Fortress, I know you don't want to control the center, and I like localize Quake or whatever the heck that card is, and I fling them into a damage hex. And this came up a lot in the tournament. A lot of the players there, whether they're returning or new, did not realize that if you have the fly keyword, you are not immune to damage hexes, lethal hexes, unless it is your move action.
Yeah.
So like that came up, he took a damage, he's still alive, he flies back in turn 2 or turn 3, misses again. So at this point, Don's like, holy cow. Like that was not good. I didn't know what I was expecting. And this is, again, the gatekeeper. So I chose to take deployment. Don gets the choice for game 2. You want to know what he takes objectives again. And I was just like, I even said, I was like, you want to take objectives? He's like, yeah, I think I want objectives. No, you want engagement. Because and now, because he even says, like, in the kind of recap, he's like, I need to play more aggressive. So we offset again, center back to, let's rewrite this whole thing again. Hefflem is off to the right this time, and he misdeploys Bloom Boy. He's kind of in the back that he can't even make a charge on Hefflem this game. And he puts at the 2-wound Aslan, whatever the 2-wound nothing fighter is, within 4 of Hefflem.
Ooh, rough.
And then he's like, oh, you go first. Okay. So boom, dead. Like, but then this is where this is why I love playing Don. Don, you are my crit lucky charm. So in this game, Spawn Maw charges across and has to bite somebody in center board. 3 dice, 3 crits.
Oh my God.
Rough.
He comes across and tries to attack him. 2 dice, 2 crits.
Oh, Jason.
Then I proceed 4 times on casting rolls. 4 times. Crit hits.
Oh my gosh.
You don't lose the game when you roll like that.
No, you do not. No, you do not.
Sorry, Don.
So it was a great game. My dice were just really, really hot. He gave it the best he could. He did score quite a bit more in the second game, but literally, like, if I'm rolling that many crits, like,
no, that's a way hard uphill battle to try and get over that.
Yeah.
Oof.
So I'm 3-1 after 4. What are you guys doing round 4, Jerod? How does your round 4 go?
So I get paired with Brian Hill, who is one of our local players. He's playing Gore Chosen of Drom,
Fearsome Fortress,
with Fearsome Fortress, which works out well for me because
everybody's in the middle. It's a party.
Yeah. Well, and he's trying to get future tokens within 1 hex of no one's territory. Game 1, I feel like Jason to Donned him on the dice side. It just felt like I couldn't miss and he couldn't hit. And so game 1 goes down in the books as 19-9. He did a slight offset, which I thought was interesting. I think he was hoping to funnel me, but I'm just not going to play that game. And then game 2, we do a slight offset again, but it's my choice this time. Again, because I want to funnel and control things, but his dice are a little bit more in his favor. He makes some tactical choices that maybe I think he was trying to play towards end game, and the short-term gains in the end were just not in his favor. I take down the Gore Hulk pretty early in game 2, but only end up winning 14-9 in game 2. So he held me a little closer in game 2. But game 1, if I had 1 crit def, I had 6 on single die.
Oh, you would.
Defense dice.
You would.
It was
the trend.
It was
the trend
so
continues.
It was so bad.
We'll
so anyway, so now I'm 2-2.
2-2.
2-2, and at this point, Eugene, where are you, Eugene? Eugene is at a draw.
Oh.
So I'm currently sitting as top Velmorn player.
There you go.
Trace, how did round 4 go for you?
Bobby Hurley.
No, Bobby.
We had a ball. That was my favorite game of the day by far, because I play Jerod all the time, and I know the outcome that is probably going to happen when I play Jerod.
So Bobby is playing what?
So Bobby is playing Headcracker with
Fearsome Fortress.
Fearsome Fortress.
Yep.
I win boards round 1. I offset pretty hard because I know that I try and, like Jared's been saying, like I try and create choke points because I don't care. I just got to squirt by you and get into your territory and get a couple people over there to corrupt your territory. I don't really care. So it is a scrum in the middle pretty early, but I managed to get Skabic with the +1 damage upgrade on him.
Oof.
And I run in and I get Headcracker out.
Ugh.
Like hella early.
That crit Grievous though.
And that stops his Inspire then.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. So managed to get both games. I got him out pretty early. Having played enough against Jerod to know that that's kind of the shtick.
Yeah.
If you can get him out, it makes it a lot harder. So dice just kind of go my way round 1. Positioning was I positioned very well. I managed to keep Skritter back just to kind of fall onto an objective in my territory to help keep it corrupted or to squirt by and get an objective in Bobby's territory. But I get my Void Curse fighter into his territory. The Scribus Wretch or whatever, the 3 damage fighter. I get him across. He starts doing some work. He's running around being a crazy fool with his additional movement cards and Void Curse upgrades that allow him to make additional move actions. So I score, Lashed into Motion, and also the card that's for the rats that you move 3 times in a row. I get both of those early. So I'm getting Seed Glory to help get upgrades out and all this other stuff, which helps to kind of snowball. So game 1 ends pretty heavily in my favor. We reset, and I don't think Bobby offset me this game, but I can't remember exactly. But it starts out not as similar, but I do manage to get Headcracker out pretty early. Like I think it's beginning of round 2. He's out of the game. But Bobby manages to come back, and he actually does a lot of work to get enough glory to beat me pretty handily. But we thought we were playing pretty quickly, but because there were so many decision points on the board, it ended up being like probably 15 or 20 minutes left before the end of the round. And so, we both kind of took the gentleman's way out, and we were like, hey, this is probably not going to be a meaningful game if we try and push to a third game. So we kind of took the 1-1. I think we both voted as each other as favorite opponents because we just had a lot of fun. And then we just took it to round 5. So
awesome. Nice. Round 5.
Yeah.
You've traveled 4.5 hours away. Yeah. Jerod has already played one person from our meta. What happens in round 5?
I get to play another person from our meta.
Go ahead, Jerod.
So this recap's going to be pretty quick because
same old
Trace
song
and
and freaking dance.
Play against each other. Yeah, so here we are. We're round 5. Game 1, I think you chose engagement.
I did.
I think you went wide.
No, we choked.
No, you narrowed. Yeah, you choked me out. Yeah. And I think there were some crit deaths in there. I don't think anything really momentous happened in game 1 other than you kind of held me close. And so we finished
It was a close
13-10.
game. It was a close game.
Yeah, 13-10.
Yeah.
It was pretty close. I mean, in all things considered, game 2 was also close. I think I took engagement that time, and I offset you, but not as much.
Yeah.
We
went wide second game.
I went wide, yeah, because I wanted avenues to not.
It was full. It was full board.
Yeah.
Second game.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to get choked. I didn't want the choke point coming into you. So two things of remark in that game. The one was where you sent Skritter in and attacked a fighter and drove him back, but you were still adjacent to another fighter on a feature token. So I played the Gambit and I just bopped Skritter. So removed him as a befouler without having to roll an attack dice and wasn't wasting an activation, which felt pretty big brain on my part to be able to pull off. And then
no, I'm just an idiot.
Ravidius Skench or whatever his name is, his whiffed scything roll.
Yeah, it was big.
I think those were the two big.
That was the one where you roll an attack dice for your defense die.
It was.
Roll a hammer. And I was
I said,
you're like, just count it as a shield. I was like, Jerod, we're not playing this way. Like, roll your defense die.
Okay.
Freaking crit deaths me.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to play straight, honorable.
That was, I was too.
That's like, not the same. It's not the same.
It's the same probability.
I understand. It's the wrong dice. It's the wrong dice. So, yeah.
Anyway. Nothing feels worse than when you roll the wrong dice and it's like
well, even when you're when you're trying to
yeah, when you re-roll into a crit, yeah. And then, but you got some vindication on a roll.
One. Yes.
So I go in with somebody and I crit hit.
No, you crit hit. You crit double hit.
Hit.
Yeah.
Crit hit. Yeah, crit and 2 hits. And I mean, the game's
over.
More or less foregone at this point. Trace just
I was like,
nonchalantly drops his.
I was like, whatever. I could
2 defense dice.
I could still maybe do it.
Tray.
And then it's a double crit. And Bobby witnesses it.
Crit. And I lose my mind.
Yeah.
Like the whole hall turned and looked at what was going on because I was so excited that it happened.
But in typical Trace versus Jerod fashion, it ends up with a Jerod win in Underworlds. Most other games, I can actually beat Jerod.
Yeah,
but in Underworlds, it's just like a freaking aura. It's an aura of suck.
It's an aura of single defense die crits is what it is. But anyway, so at this point, Eugene has taken a loss. I have
climbed back,
managed to claw my way back 60% of the time. It works every time. And I'm now sitting on a 3-2 and just waiting for the final tally to come in. Jason, round 5.
Round 5, I go up against no nerf Godsworn Hunt.
No, Gnarl Spirit Pack, sir.
Gnarl Spirit Pack.
Gnarl Spirit Pack. So, I had been hearing about the Warband all day. I'm going to be honest.
This is my round 1 opponent.
Yeah, this is your round 1
by
opponent.
The way.
So Craig, he sits down and, at this time everyone had been talking about it. I'm going to tell you, I forgot how they play because it's been so long since
They're real good.
So he wins roll off, places wide, and I get to a point where, I draw my objectives and I got a couple things I can score. But again, I have oh my goodness, and it's getting late, so I'm going to forget the claim the prize.
Yep.
And I know, if I don't score, I don't ditch, because if I don't score this round 1, he's going to be so much in my Kool-Aid that I just can't do it.
Right.
But then he also, I don't roll a crit. I have 5 fighters, so I have to go first. So I do my positioning thing. I get the fighters onto objectives with the least amount of, risk. We get them out there so I can just play the game. His first activation, he comes across with Kira, not to scythe, and that's what I was worried about, because when I play Pandemonium, I'm kind of lumped up in the center. The way the boards that I pick, I like to pick the one with 2 snare hexes so I can get a cheeky glory, so I can run through a snare hex. But it forces all my fighters together too, because that way I also get my bonus die to cast. But Spawn Maw is all the way off to the left, and that's probably where I made the mistake. I should have put Flame Spooler off to the left and Maw off to the right, just be the way that things work. But Kira activates, come across, hits Spawn Maw for 1 or for 2. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness she didn't crit, right? So I'm like, okay, I didn't have that bad feel, but still hitting for 2. So he's only got 1 health left. And I'm like, ooh, this is going to be bad. But he drives her back, which is fine. Drives Spawn Maw back. I attack back. She is in a cover hex. I do a damage. Okay. Other stuff goes down. Everything's pretty normal. I debate whether to drive her out of the cover hex and over a hex. And I don't, because I have a card that if I take a fighter out of action when they're in a feature token, I get a glory. And my fourth activation, I play the one where I can cast 6 away, and I should have just moved her, but I didn't. But I have to charge Heffalump over onto the objective. So I have 2 objectives. And at this point, I'm feeling really good. Like, yes, I've taken some damage. I've done some damage to him. The board state is what the board state is. But I'm like, I am in my territory. He's charged 3 times. I have 2 objectives. I'm going to score 3 glory. I'm going to jump out to a lead. I also have 9 fates in my hand. I'm feeling really, really good. I miss on Kira because I didn't push her out of the, or no, I do. I take Kira out either way. So she's gone turn 1. I'm feeling, yay, she's gone. And then he activates the leader, and I forget his name.
Sarkar.
Which moves.
It's Tim the Enchanter.
Yeah, the Enchanter.
It's Tim the Enchanter.
He moves 1,000 spaces in range 3, and he comes in and knocks me off.
Move 6 when he's on beast form.
He knocks me off the objective. And like as he's doing it, I'm like, oh my God, I did not remember he can move that far. And he completely trashes my turn 1 scoring. Because he just comes across and he hits me. I had used my card where I can switch 2 fighters, so Heffalump doesn't take the damage, but the other changers on the objective, he pushes them off, and I don't get my glory. And now I'm like, oh my God, like he's all up in my Kool-Aid. I don't score any of my big scores. I actually have to ditch my big scores because at this point, I'm not going to get those objectives. In hindsight, I did at the end of the game, but I didn't think I was going to have anything alive to do that. I ended up by taking out Lupin, and the game goes back and forth. It goes back and forth. We actually tie 12-12 in game 1, but I have 2 fighters on objectives. Nice. And he has none. So I take it on the tiebreaker 12-12. Game 2, now I get to pick deployment. I longboard him, and I go up big. Like, I'm showing him this is how it's done. I'm like, Lupin comes in. My deck loves to target somebody over and over again. I don't care if I hit you or not. I'm scoring glory, killing Lupin, get my big scores. I think at one point I was up 15-3. And then in turn 3, I go first. I hit Goral for 2. I then push him into a lethal, or I do 2 plank damage to him. Yeah. So now I'm like, holy cow, I have 3 fighters. He's got 1 fighter. I'm up. I just stopped one of his oaths from going off. I'm good. I then proceeded to just run away because he was killing my other 2 fighters, the Flame Spooter and Kindlefinger, just boom, boom, dead. I only ended up by winning the game 17-15.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, he battled all the way back. It was really close. Thank goodness I ran away. Thank goodness I did pass 1 or 2 defensive saves during the game. But I just forgot how fast they are. Like pre-beta,
so
pre-nerf, like they're just like
they're just range 9, threat range 9.
Yeah,
on Sarkar.
Yes. And Kira's even +1 too. So like,
so she's moved 5 and with sighting, and
it was just crazy how fast they were. Both games I took Kira out early, which really, really helped me. And didn't have to spend a lot of cards to do that. So, I take it in 2. Definitely made me sweat. Total glory in that game was 29-27. But I went 4-1 and only dropped the 2 rounds of round 1. So I would say that that was a pretty good tournament for me. And again, just to emphasize the gatekeeper aspect, Pandemonium can be beaten, but you have to know the other phases of the game, from deployment and objective deployment to having a plan to beat them. And that's what I learned from this tournament, was if you're still learning your own warband and you're still learning your own deck, or you're still learning a piece of the game, they can feel bad. And there was at one point where I was like, I kind of wish that I would have taken something a little bit less. Like, it's great to take it if I had a shot to win it all. Dropping game one, I was like, oh, I wish I had something else, so the games were a little bit more meaningful for me. Not saying that my opponents played bad or anything. It just, I think that the fact that I had a plan, I only brought 3 boards. I knew exactly where my objectives wanted to be. And every opponent that I played into, I knew what you were trying to do.
Right.
Other than the move 9 was really my only surprise of the day. Just made for, I just don't think it was as fun for others as it could have been if I had brought something else.
So in my experience, with playing against them, is if you miss 2 key attacks, you're host.
Yeah.
There's not a lot you can do to come back from that. Like the game with Don is a good example.
Yeah.
He comes across his Drax Skewer, misses twice. Ball game.
Yeah.
Like, not only, and the reason why it is a gatekeeper list is because you need things to go not perfectly, but as close to perfect as you can. If you're running into a very well-tuned, experienced FLM player. Like, I understand the recipe. The recipe to take them out, I understand it. It's just getting it to fire. And you need accurate aggro to get in there, or multiple attacks. Like when we were playing Ripa, like I just kept whiffing attacks. But like you said it, you were like, I was in trouble. Like your positioning and stuff like that. When we played through, you're like, your positioning was perfect. But you need those attacks to go through. And if they don't go through, you end up having you get behind the 8 ball really quick.
And you know, the Pandemonium test has now run its course, right? Like I think that the new errata FAQ to make him only get the bonus dice as if he's within 2 hexes of changers is a really good subtle nerf. Because I will tell you, like, I didn't have to worry about positioning around the objectives and where he was, because I always had someone around in 3. There are some times during my game, especially against Neural Spirit Pack and especially against George, like I would only have been rolling 1 dice. Or 1 die. Like, it would have significantly changed what I could do. And even against Don, there were times where I had to be out of position to do what I wanted to do with him. That like I would probably have not made that decision because I would have been rolling 1 die. So I'm not saying that it's gonna like just completely reel them in, because I have 7 things that you could do to reel them in completely. But I think after having a good 30 or 40 games into them, I've got it narrowed down to 2 other things that I would love to see changes to them. The easiest one be range 4, right? Like range 4 is, I leveraged that a lot during the tournament. I've leveraged it a lot in my games, but I think taking him back to range 3 may be a step too far, unless that's all you changed. Like literally, if you changed nothing else and made him range 3, okay, fine. But we've already got 1 change where the dice go away, which I think is the more elegant change. The other one is, again, there's 7. If you want us, hit us in Discord. I'll give you all 7. But the 2 that I think
we need a list of 9 to really be thematic.
I kind of do have 9, but 7 that I think will actually matter. Is in the changer phase, like the change phase is the push. The opponent tells you where to push that fighter.
Ooh,
and the reason I like
spicy.
the reason I like this one is because a lot of people believe that Fearsome Fortress is the best way to play them. And it's because you can kind of position onto an objective right away and score a bunch of stuff by just making another activation. That does not happen. It also really, like, where I deploy them, who I decided to put the other stuff on, this fighter could be in a very dangerous position if I allow my fighter to be pushed turn 1. It may not matter in turn 2 and turn 3, but
yeah,
I think that would be another really elegant thing, is that your opponent is to push that changer. The last piece, I would love to change Kindlefinger, but there's a lot of things to get around Kindlefinger after, especially playing in the tournament, that I just don't think we should. Like, the final one would be the res card. I think that they have so many tools that when you finally do get that hit through trace, I've just seen it on so many opponents, is like, oh, I finally did something.
You've done it to me
and it's
numerous
like,
times.
oh wait, I'm rolling 3 dice with a reroll. That fighter's coming back, and it's probably Spawn Maw, who's inspired on 2 dodge with 3 wounds.
Right.
So
yeah,
I feel it should be they come back invulnerable, or come back vulnerable, or at the very least they come back like with like 2 wounds remaining. So if you res one of the 3, you get a wound token. The 3 wound fighters, the 2 wound fighters, they just stay. But Cryos or George had an idea, is like, why don't you make it more difficult to cast, right? So why don't you make it on
you could also have him come back uninspired.
Yeah, two, or they come back uninspired would be a great idea too, right? Like,
yeah.
I think vulnerable is probably the easiest to do, but those are the 2 other things that I would do just to tweak those in. So that's our tournament. I go 4-1. I place second. Woohoo! Trace almost achieves his perfect record of 1-1-1-1-1 and perfect glory differential. You got 1, 2, and 2. So close right there.
It was close, yeah.
It was close. Jerod, you do take top Velmort?
I do, and I managed to claw my way into the top 8 with my 3-0. So
you're welcome.
Velmorn squeaking into top 8 at Nova, the largest clash in the U.S. in 2023.
Yeah.
Oh, and so one thing of note is that local player Jake, this whole time, has been 4-0. Round 5, he's playing at the top table against Mark Brialt, Baconborn, and his Canaan's Reapers. And ends up losing that final game. But Jake has, but in round 3, right?
They took 3 games.
So he took it took 3 games. So he took a game off of Mark. So just kudos to Jake. He played well. He had a good deck. He's a good player. So he ends up coming in 5th.
Yeah, it was great to see Jake come up there at his first major tournament. It was great. Like, he is a younger gentleman. So I believe he's 18 or 19 years old. And, so his family was up there doing other things in the city. They were there, with him. So that was great to see that a younger generation getting into the game. And Jake has played really well here in a local scene. So great job, Jake, for getting out there and playing probably one of the best players of Underworlds that's currently out there in the world, and taking a game from him. And he definitely played a lot of hard games throughout the day as well. He did not have the submarine path that I had. He also played Pandemonium. So good on you, sir. Way to get out there. Way to make it happen. And then the other thing, so like that, our tournament, great tournament, fantastic. I enjoyed it. I think you guys enjoyed it. But there was another achievement unlocked in the fact that this great Heffalump Pandemonium that was painted by my dear friend Trace took best painted.
Yeah, it did.
So congratulations to you. Oh, look, he's got the little handle.
He's got his prize paint handle right there.
So definitely my favorite warband, like, that's out there. You knocked it out. Super happy that finally got the the best painted at the Nova tournament. So congratulations, sir. That really is the highlight of the whole tournament.
Yeah. So somebody in the podcast has gotten best opponent. Somebody in the podcast has gotten best painted. So somebody just needs to win the event.
Well, that's somebody.
My bad, you guys.
So
my bad, you guys.
Yeah. So some great things there in the Clash. My last question of this whole Underworld segment is, I understand that Velmorn has now won a Warhammer World Nemesis, or I'm sorry, a Rivals event. But there has been a lot of talk in the community, Jerod, that Velmorn is underpowered. Would you change anything with your top 8 finish?
Yeah. So I think that the change that gets talked about most in the community is letting Velmorn keep his command counter at the end of the action phase. And I think that would probably be a really subtle touch that would add some benefit. It provides more opportunities to inspire Velmorn. It provides better accuracy to any uninspired fighters that you have going into Action Phase 2 and Action Phase 3. It also means that you could still activate him first and now have multiple command counters and make better use of the gambits. I think it could help. I don't know that it's what they need. I think about what they want to do, what it feels like to me they want to do, and what other Death Warbands are able to do. There's not a good way to do it, I don't think, without completely like going back to the drawing board or inventing a new card for them. But I kind of want them to have access to a free move at some point in the game within their own design space. I know that I could go Void Cursed and there's lots of extra movement there. There's gambits and stuff for pushes, but just extra positioning for them to force fighters into like the supports instead of relying on retaining a command counter to get those supports, I think would go a long way. But that's just one man's opinion.
Do you think that they're fine?
I mean, I think that they're fun. I think that they're solidly in the middle of the pack. Like they're not S tier, they're not A tier, but I would not consider them, F tier either. So, yeah, I mean, I have fun with them.
Okay. Top 8, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
I think you're just trying to power game it like you are with your Eldar.
Yeah, you know me.
So then just to run down kind of the rest of the thing. So Mark, congratulations, Baconborn, for Canaan's Reapers. Void Curse, Canaan's Reapers. He did take 2 game losses on the day, but won all rounds, 15 points, with a glory differential of 72. So definitely up there.
Hefty.
Skylar.
Good on you, sir.
Skylar from What the Hex took Elethane Soul Raid, and my tip of my hat to you, sir, because I tried. This was I'm going to try to do something fun with Terrible Toxins. I could not wrap my head around it. Obviously, you figured it out. 12 points, only 2 game losses, a glory differential of 55. Jordan also, Elethane Soul Raid, going the 4-1 with 3 game losses, glory differential of 44. And Jake from our local meta also playing Pandemonium, finishing 5th. Actually negative glory differential on the day, and he had 5 game losses. So good shout out there.
He had a hard fought battle.
He did
to get to 5th place.
And rounding out the top 10, just Bobby, another person from the What the Hex meta with Headcrackers that Trace played. He finished in 6th. You got Michael with Exiled Dead. And then, I don't know, this Jared Johnson guy. And then George with this Plague Pack at 9. And then Brian from What the Hex finishing in 10th with 9 points and dropping 5 games throughout the day. So that was your top 10 at Nova. Again, a 31 player Grand Clash, the biggest one that we've had in the States here so far this year. Thank you to all the attendees. If we forgot your name or didn't mention you, it really means a ton to us to have people come out to Nova. Even though it isn't our event, it is the one that we get to go to. You make it a great, fantastic event. Thanks for being there, and thanks for having fun with us. With that, I think that's it. We'll wrap it up and come back for the outro.
And we're back, and that will wrap up the 54th episode of the Battle Mallet podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, feel free to hit the like, subscribe, whatever, share our podcast with your friends. We're on every major podcasting platform. We are Battle Mallet 1 on X/Twitter, Battle Mallet PCast on Instagram. We're the Battle Mallet podcast on Facebook. Our website is battle-mallet.com. I think that's all of the needfuls.
Yeah, so Jared's done a great job of collecting decks from this tournament, so check out the Nemesis library. I think you got all top 8 now.
I'm still missing Jake's deck.
Oh, Jake,
I'll harass him. I know, right? Yeah, and then I've got a handful of others. George Kairos shared his with me, so it's up there. I added a tournament filter on the deck library, so you can click and see through just the tournament decks as well. So we've got all that set up and going. I think that's it. I'm excited to play some Underworlds and start messing around again and not feel like I'm having to prep for a major event.
Not be sweaty.
Yeah. So I think that's it, right? No major shout outs. I'll just say this. If we get published first or they get published first or whatever, if you haven't, I'm sure that Path to Glory and What the Hex are going to have great episodes recapping their games. They tend to go into a lot more detail about them. So just go check out their podcasts to get another perspective on the event and the Grand Clash and to hear about their games in detail.
Yeah, and
I think that's it.
Just get ready. March 1st is when tickets go on sale for next year's Nova. I know that this has been a marathon of an episode for everybody as we're hitting the 3 hour and 3.5 hour mark. But it truly, for me, being that middle-aged man with wife and kids, is 5 days of resetting and truly just being able to focus on my hobby and the people of Nova, the vendors of Nova, my friends at Nova have never disappointed. It is fantastic. So if you want to come next year, come hang out with me in the lounge. I'm there every night.
That's where it'll be. Yeah, so shout out to the Nova volunteers and staff for sure for putting together an amazing event. And we will see you next year. So for the Battle Mallet podcast, this is Jerod signing out.
I gotta go pack.
And I'm Jason Tableton Murray. Get the hell out of here!
Peace.
Go Bills.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
Why don't we just go with a simple title like Faithfully?
Faithfully. Pew, pew, pew.